You are listening to the Knightline Sports Network, brought to you by Travis Dever and the Dever team, 386-690-1636.
Knightline is brought to you by the Dever team, your source for New Smyrna Beach real estate and everything else New Smyrna Beach. Go to www.thedeverteam.com and call UCF alumni Travis Dever for all your New Smyrna Beach needs. 386-690-1636. That's 386-690-1636.
Welcome to UCF Knightline, your source for UCF sports and former player information.
All right, hello, Night Nation. This is Andrew Phegley coming to you from the 1148 studios, and this is Knightline 277 from the award-winning Knightline Sports Network. Joining me as always now, Roger and Ben. Roger, go ahead.
Roger Phipps, and on this, no, just kidding. And on this week's show, the entire Jackets organization gets stung. Where's the D? Drops, that is. We break down the offense and defense from this week's beatdown. UCF prepares to tame the Ponies, if Ian says so. We go inside the huddle with Knightline's football analyst Neal. We provide our quarter season update, your questions and Ask Knightline, the Tijuana Flats hot take of the week, and news and notes.
All right, welcome, guys. Are your hurricane preparations done, by the way?
Yeah, I think it's going to miss me, so I'm good.
Yeah, well, Ben?
I think it's I filled up my gas tank today. How about that? We did go grocery shopping. We're kind of prepared. And as I mentioned to you guys on the group chat, I actually was supposed to be traveling tomorrow and coming back Wednesday, and I pretty much, decided to have a coming to Jesus moment this tonight with that, and I was like, nah, that's probably not a good idea. That because it's pretty much guaranteed I would not be back on Wednesday on a plane because that's when it's really supposed to hit us. So I decided to go ahead and
you don't want the wife and kids
that work
to have
trip.
to be able to have to do that themselves through that hurricane.
Yeah, that was the deciding factor for me. I just kind of thought about it more tonight and watched a couple of Tony Manolfi update videos.
No,
thank you
I
for
mean,
putting that layup there for him.
I'm sure that thought crossed his mind because that thought crosses my mind with my wife.
Yeah. For sure.
They're like telling us at the car dealership that I work at, they're like, oh yeah, we're going to be selling cars on Wednesday and Thursday. And I'm like, dude, you may be, because I'm not going to be. I'm going to be at home, protecting this house instead of that house. But anyway, that's another story altogether.
It's good that I'll be home and it is what it is. You got to take these things seriously. You never know what can happen. So yep.
Yep, you do have to take these things seriously. This one, who knows? Hopefully it'll
very Charlie-esque right now.
Yeah, hopefully it doesn't turn out like that. But this is going to be an interesting show because we record Trey before we come on. We record that conversation before we start this show, and I will tell you that that interview is very long. We went down a couple of rabbit holes in that one, which wasn't really intending to, but it just kind of happened, and you'll hear it. It's awesome, though. I will say that it's probably one of my favorite moments in the years of doing this show, to be honest with you. That one was a good one. So you'll hear that honestly, in a little while. Go ahead.
I think you're underselling it a little bit, Andrew. I know, like you said, it's a little bit longer. It's about double what we normally do. But
don't give it all away.
No. What I was going to say was it's worth listening through the entire show, because that interview had so much from different parts of UCF history, our highs and our lows from a player's perspective that you won't get anywhere else.
Yeah. And remember,
not everybody's as open.
Yeah, not as open and as experienced as he is with, 3 different head coaches at UCF and playing for Scott Frost in 2 different places. So there's probably no other person on the planet that has that, honestly.
I'm excited for everybody to hear this one because I really think, Trey did a great job of giving us perspective on that time in UCF history, or those multiple times in UCF history.
Yeah, he's a cerebral dude, too. I think all of you should probably notice that by now. He's a smart guy. And his insights are really good on all of this stuff. And he looks at the whole thing on many different levels.
Couldn't agree with you more there. He's a sharp guy. We're happy to have him.
Super sharp. Yeah. Absolutely awesome. Anyway, that interview is coming up. But we might as well get into this game. If that's what you want to call it. It was a different one for sure. Well, I mean, it was rough. It was really rough. Came out on top 27-10, but the game you watched on the field, I'm finally, ESPN, for some reason, I was working during this game because it was an early one. ESPN took forever to put it up. They finally put it up last night, late. So I finally just watched this entire game. I'm watching it over for the second time now as we're doing this, and I'll be able to notice a couple things as well. It was just a weird one, 27-10 win over Georgia Tech. A win is a win, I guess, but there were some glaring issues as well, in my opinion.
So what you're saying, Andrew, is you get the straight jackets out.
Sure. Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, it was. I mean, you mentioned Trey started his playing career for O'Leary, and it definitely didn't feel like the UCF offense that we've been, used to since that 2016-2017 season. Where Scott Frost came in and just, everything that we've experienced since, especially from a passing perspective. I mean, I can't quite remember the last time we've had 49 yards passing, and I certainly can't recall the last time we had 49 yards passing in a win. You would have told us about 5-6 years ago that we would beat an ACC team
with 49 yards passing.
With only 49 yards passing. That's I don't think any of us would have believed that, if somebody had told us that a number of years ago. But
I'm sure it's happened before, but maybe not for
3
UCF.
times.
Okay, good.
3 times for UCF within the past 10 years.
Okay, interesting. I'm glad that you actually went and looked that up because I was going to be like, Roger, I think you need. Awesome. So yeah,
random stats with Roger.
Yeah, tell us what you found with that. So.
Well, I mean, there's not. I just
kind
of
looked
looked
at the times. Do you remember who was the quarterback? What was the situation?
No, it was. I don't remember the exact, but it was spaced out. It was about every 2 years or so. So I don't remember the particulars on the teams themselves. One was early in that time frame, the second or third season, and then it was like every 2 years after that. But it's a rarity. I mean, we played a lot of games in 10 years, and to win with 49 yards. And the other thing is we were outgained by 119 yards this game and still won. Mm-hmm. Yeah. This whole game, to me, what I wrote down in my game notes was this is GOL ball. So George O'Leary ball for the George O'Leary Bowl. That's how I felt watching this because it was a defensive and running game. And that was the game plan. We didn't even really try to pass. We attempted 16 times. We had 72 plays, which was 19 plays less than the last game. And we only tried 17 times. That was 20%, of our offensive possessions. We actually tried to pass the ball, and it's been 60-40 the entire season. So This was completely different than anything that we had done all season long. It was ball control and heavy attack.
Okay.
Yeah. And it was kind of,
go ahead.
Go ahead, Andrew.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say it was kind of wild considering that as, before Jeff Collins and really Jeff Sims, the quarterback, arrived at Georgia Tech. I mean, they were a triple option running only team, like Army and Navy does. And it was just interesting watching it because while we tried to, pass the ball a number of times, and I know that we're going to have to get into some of the drops that we've seen throughout this season and especially in this game, but it kind of wound up us being the, heavily reliant on the running game. You would have thought that we were the triple option team playing against Georgia Tech this time. It was just
we were putting up Navy numbers.
Yeah, we were putting up Navy numbers.
I think
that's for
Trey
sure.
said that. I think in the
Yeah,
he was the one that brought that up. Like this would be
our
perfect
average
for a
yard-
Navy team.
Yeah, our average yards per play was 4.6, and our yards per attempt on the running game was 5.1. So when you look at that,
our
it's
leading
like
receiver was Isaiah Bowser, right? I mean,
Yeah,
22 yards.
Yeah,
it was
One
like
reception.
a triple. Trey said it too. It was like a triple option team.
yeah.
Yeah, exactly. That's what it just felt like. It was just, I mean, I don't want to key in on this word too much, but it was just a weird game watching it. It was just strange.
It was very strange. And looking at the score and not being able to hear any commentary or anything like that, just watching, the score on ESPN app, trust me, I was like, what is going on? And I looked at halftime or whatever, and I don't remember what the yards were at halftime, but I was like, where's the passing? Is Plumlee even in there? Is what I was thinking. Speaking of Plumlee, we have our one Ask Knightline question, and one is a lot better than none. So thank you.
Is that kind of like
much.
a win is better than a loss this week, like UCF always puts in the game notes?
Absolutely, yeah. So Black and Gold Ed was gracious enough to ask a question for us, and yeah, let me at Black and Gold _ED. Do JRP's throws have a flutter to them that make it hard for receivers to catch? It's crazy. A sure-handed wide receiver like O'Keefe is struggling to catch passes. Thoughts? So I'm going to go at this, and y'all know I'm
All right. I'm sitting back in my chair. I'm waiting for this one because I feel like it's going to be a minute.
I don't know if it's necessarily going to be long. But
Just pointed.
I mean, I just think that I don't know about it there being a flutter or whatever, but he throws the ball either too far or short or, there's always something, it seems like, unless he is completely on. What I think the biggest thing with him is if he is off and gets flustered or whatever, isn't having a good start to the game, which we saw here, throwing the ball, makes some mistakes, loses confidence. And that's when JRP, as far as a thrower, is done. And I think that that's what we saw in this game, and they abandon it. The coaching staff absolutely abandoned the pass. And we saw the same thing in the Louisville game, really, when O'Keefe went out, didn't have O'Keefe, what are we going to do? Well, we're not going to pass the ball anymore. And I don't know if it was a confidence thing for Plumlee at that point or not in the Louisville game, but I believe that this one, it just seemed like it was. I mean, I don't know. I feel like he runs the ball so awesome. If he could just pass the ball efficiently, at least more efficiently. And when he does, when everybody's firing on all cylinders and all that stuff, he throws the ball really well sometimes. Not all the time, but the majority of them are thrown really well. I've also noticed with him, though, the more he puts into the throw, the less touch he uses on these throws, the less accurate that he is. Like, big time. And you can watch it, especially in this game, because I've been rewatching it and literally looking at how hard and how much touch he's trying to put on the ball. And I think that's when he becomes frustrated. And he's just trying to like throw them in there. We've seen him throw some balls where we were all like, holy crap, I can't believe he threw that, but miraculously they've been caught. And there's other ones where, wow, I can't believe he threw that. He shouldn't have thrown that. It just got intercepted. Also, as we were talking about, there are a bunch of drops. There are. And I don't know if the receivers aren't expecting the ball because he plays such a, no, listen, this is serious. Because he plays such a run heavy thing where he's just going to take off and go because he knows he can. Are the receivers in the right position at that time? Does he extend the play a little bit too long in the backfield before he takes off? Does he try to stand there or at least try to get the ball downfield by passing first? Or does he just take off on the plays that aren't designed for him to just take off? Because there's designed runs, but there's a lot that aren't where he just, there's nobody to throw it to, I'm going to run. I'm going to do it myself. So I just feel like that he needs to relax and gain some confidence. So maybe like some more scripted plays at the beginning of the game. Some easy passes. You hear this all the time. In the NFL, you hear it. In college football, you hear it. In every level, we've got scripted plays. We're just going to get some short throws and get him confident, whoever the quarterback is.
They did that with FAU last week.
Right. Well, they didn't here. So this is the result, I believe, of not doing that.
Yeah, I hear you. No,
I'm frustrated.
I get it. I get it. I'm not going to be able to comment on any type of flutter on the throws or anything.
Yeah, I mean we could.
But I am going to say that talking about John Rice Plumlee too much in this conversation is letting Division I wide receivers off the hook a little bit too much. And I'm not talking about you, Andrew. I'm just talking about in general. Is that I think that we're wondering. I mean, I'm watching the same as you, Andrew. I'm watching the game on my other screen here, the replay of the game, and I'm watching the first drive of the game. And JRP's first throw is a 15-yard back shoulder throw to Javon Baker that, quite frankly, he should catch. Was it perfect? No. Was there a defender nearby? Yes. But Javon Baker needs to catch that ball. And that's just one example. I guarantee you that wasn't even a drop by Javon Baker, so that's not even counted in the 4 drops that were by our wide receivers in this game. I mean, on our group text, we texted about Kobe Hudson. I understand. First game in a UCF uniform that he's been on the field. But there was a dime thrown by JRP in the third, I believe it was the third quarter of this game. And it was just an outright, hit him in the hands drop. And you want to talk about confidence as a passer. I mean, when he does do something right and you have a sure-handed we hope a sure-handed wide receiver drop the ball, like that's got to be tough on the confidence in general. How is he supposed to get in a rhythm when he is, trying to get in a rhythm and he's hitting them in the hands and it's bouncing off their hands?
I will agree with that.
Yeah. I mean, it's just like, how is he?
Consistency is absolutely not there.
Yeah, I think that's an issue.
The consistency with his throws.
Yeah, and I think that's an issue with just our offense in general. Certainly not necessarily our defense. Looks like we got some things, kind of going on special teams now with Colton Boomer. I mean, 4 field goals in this game, which I'm sure we're going to get to. Thank God. It seems like we have a kicker now, which is fantastic. I mean, but we had 8 points on offense in this game. Yeah. We had 8 points, and we won by 17, guys. We won by 17 against an ACC team, and I understand they're the bottom of the barrel, and we've certainly passed them.
With 2 touchdowns dropped.
Yeah, and
with 2 touchdowns dropped.
Well, and a kick or a fumble return that got dropped as well.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it could have been more points on defense and special teams, right?
Yeah.
And Gus said today,
more ways than one dropped. I hope you guys got that.
Yes, dropped. Yeah, more ways. You're right. Dropped it. And after a fantastic play. I feel bad for him that he couldn't hang on to that. But regardless,
man, you just gotta you gotta hold on to it.
He's got to do it.
Yeah.
But I was just going to say
he'll never do that again. I don't think.
No. Hopefully he learns for that. But Gus said in his press conference today that him and his coaching staff counted 7 plays in the Georgia Tech game, 7 plays that should have been scores and didn't.
Leaving points on the field.
This 7 plays. That's 7 scores that were he felt like they left those on the field. That's a lot, and that speaks to the consistency that we need to see to this, for this offense, especially going into conference play, and especially with a team that, as long as the game is played, we are going to need to keep up with. We've got to alleviate the pressure on our defense against a team like SMU. So we need some more consistency out of everyone, including JRP. I'm not going to let him off the hook by any means, but he's got to improve as a passer. But man, it's got to be tough for a guy that's just trying to get into a rhythm, and he's hitting some throws, and his receivers, it's bouncing off their hands. That's just tough. I just watched another Javon Baker drop on the replay here in the first quarter.
Yeah, so Roger, what's your take on the question?
Okay.
We're not able to see how the ball flutters.
I'm going to break this into
but it was a good,
Yeah, it was a good question. I'm going to break it, and it was a good segue for us to talk about this, right? Because we were going to talk about it anyway. But there's 3 things really for me with this whole JRP and the receivers and all that stuff. And I've got numbers behind this, right? So, number 1, the scheme for this game was completely different than what we've done in any other game this season. So,
and that's fine, though. That's fine.
No, but hold on. So, for example, when you were talking about, the number of passing yards that we put up, right? So Louisville, which is an example you used, we had 34 attempts. In FAU, we had 36 attempts. In this game, we had 17 attempts. He still finished with a 47.06% completion percentage, with those
50,
well, hold on.
50%. He had 16 of those 17 attempts. He was 8 for 16.
What?
He was 50%.
8 for 16, 50%.
I got 8 for 17.
It's 60.
Ryan O'Keefe had a pass.
Yeah. Well, either way, 68% with those 3 back. If they wouldn't have dropped those 3, he would be at 68%. For the season, he'd be 72. So when we start talking about his completion percentage, and most of the drops are not on the short field. So when he's passing behind the line or near scrimmage, he's got a high completion percentage. Anything that's long, that's where the drops are coming in. So his completion percentage would be a lot better. Now, going back to the question, that he was asking, Ed was asking, I said last week on this podcast that he has a weird way of releasing the ball. He releases the ball when it leaves his hands when it's in the right bottom quadrant, and it puts a different spin and a different trajectory on the ball than what a traditional pass does. Now, to Ben's point, should that affect our receivers as much as it has? So we've got 5 drop TDs in the 2 last games, right? We have 15 drops in 4 games according to PFF. That's almost 4 drops per game. That equates to 13% of the catchable passes thrown are dropped by our receivers. Now, these aren't attempts. These aren't, throws where he's sailing them. These are catchable passes. The highest we have ever had in a season is 39 drops in 2020, and that was 10%. So this is the highest percentage of drops we've ever had. In 2017, we had 22 dropped in 402 attempts. Those aren't missed throws. Those are catchable balls. That's unacceptable. We dropped 3 more big passes in this game and left 2 TDs on the table. Specifically, Javon Baker leads with the most targets, but also has the most drops. He's got 33 targets this season and has dropped 18% of his passes, catchable balls, right? Which equates to 6 balls. Ryan O'Keefe has 3 drops on 26 targets, which equates to 12%. UCF currently ranks 118 out of 131 FBS teams in receiving per PFF. This is not all John Rice Plumlee. So I think that encapsulates the point. It's the perfect confluence of all three. We had 49 yards this game. We would have added 100 yards with those 3 drop passes in passing. And that would have made us equitable with what Georgia Tech put up. So part of this is scheme. We went way heavy on the run. We have 56 pass attempts versus running attempts versus 17 pass attempts. We've got a lot of drops going on. And to your point also is we didn't attempt to get him in rhythm on this particular game. So how much of this, I think people are overreacting. I think there's a lot to be said in the numbers. I think to Ben's point, there's some blame to be put on the receivers. There's some blame to be put on John Rice Plumlee because he missed some open receivers. Like there was a decision that was made, and even our offensive coordinator said today in his presser, it was yesterday that he had his presser. He said that he made mention of one play where the safety, with a little bit more experience, John Rice would have went to Kamari Gamble, who actually played better this game, who was streaking to the left in the end zone versus the receiver that was double coverage on the right. John Rice Plumlee was expecting the safety to go with Gamble, and he didn't. He bit down on the receiver, and he threw it in double coverage and ended up with a field goal. That's experience. So there's some that's experience. Some of this, I think, is on them. And what our offensive coordinator said is he needs, and he blatantly, this is the first time he said this, he needs to run the plays that we're putting out there. So
and that's what
John
I was
Rice
saying
is not
earlier.
following it.
That's what I was saying earlier as well. So, yeah.
Yeah.
John Rice Plumlee, you know where he ranks in running yards, rushing yards in college football as of this game?
It's got to be up there.
Number 19.
Yeah, he's averaging over 100 yards a game, right?
Yeah, and he is the highest quarterback, has the most yards. Malik Cunningham is second with 395, and John Rice has 404. So
that's crazy that Cunningham is second because we just played him 2 weeks ago.
Yep.
He ran all over the cows.
Just looking at the NCAA stats just to see. I haven't looked at it yet this season, but I kind of wondered that. So, I mean, he runs the ball.
He stampeded the cows?
Yeah. He runs the ball like nobody's business, but we just have to get the ball being, there has to be a true dual threat quarterback instead of just a single threat quarterback.
Yeah, no doubt.
We also got to play. You got to do the play calling too, though, Andrew. To your point, like getting someone in rhythm is important, and you only.
But then again, you said that the coach said that if he would run the plays that we put in.
I agree, but most of them were set up as running plays. I didn't see very many plays that he kept the ball that he was supposed to pass it or something like that.
Yeah.
I think. Well, this has been like kind of the tale of there's 2 games that he's been they have struck that balance of the kind of where we had 600 plus total yards, we had over 300 passing, over 300 rushing. I mean, where we struck that balance, there has been 2 games, and then there's been 2 games that we have been very out of balance, right? This one is just wildly out of balance towards rushing, but we've seen some good flashes. Obviously, those 2 games where we were able to, see the balance we're looking for against lesser opponents. So we've got to be able to step up. Now, I will say, though, 2 areas that we were very concerned about with this offense at the beginning of the season, a couple games in, especially after the Louisville loss, was penalties and the offensive line play. I think both of those, well, certainly penalties has been very much improved. Especially on offense. And then I think the offensive line over the last 2 games has shown, some steps in the right direction, shown that unit is gelling. And so hopefully, that bodes well and allows, JRP to start gelling with his receivers a little bit better. And we can see some better, that being the next step in the progression of this offense is timely throws and our playmakers, who we consider playmakers from the wide receiver position, making those plays, making the tough catches, putting it out there putting it on the line for their quarterback, and we just need to see that. Well,
the thing about it is, we put on more first downs than them too. I mean, that first drive was, I think Chip Lindsey said, was like 23 or 24 plays for one drive. So if you think about those numbers that I gave you, take 23 or 24 out of 73 out, right, for one drive. And the rest of the game, how many plays did we run? However, one of the things, the positive side of JRP being able to run, especially when the play breaks down,
it was 15 minutes
for this season.
15 minutes. 15 minutes was that. No, I'm sorry.
The drive?
Yeah.
13 minutes?
Yeah, 15 actually.
Wow, that's nuts.
A whole quarter.
So,
that's crazy.
Well, no,
Yeah.
that's not right. I'm sorry. No, that's not right. I was looking at it was talking about the clock. They got the ball with 5 minutes and 7 seconds to go in the quarter.
That's nuts.
It is nuts.
So 46% for the season on third down converted for the team. That is well above what an average team. We're actually, and in fourth downs converted, we're leading the nation at 71.43%. So his ability to scramble and run when the play breaks down is really, really, really good. Now, consequently, how does the defense play into that? Third down percentages converted annually for the opponent is 26.79%. Anything under 30% is really good. Fourth downs, 30%. So the defense is playing really, really well, and we're able, despite the fact that we're having these issues with the passing game, we're still able to convert 46% of our third downs and 71% of our fourth downs. So something's working there.
Yeah,
9 minutes and 47 seconds, by the way. Sorry. I was looking at the wrong column. 9 minutes and 47 seconds.
That's still an eternity in a football game.
Yeah,
that's
huge.
A big deal. I think you are onto something there, though, Roger, is I think that the offensive game plan, when we have to, when we really just are able to pound the ball and run the ball well, and have those long possessions, that's just going to pay dividends for our, defense as well, where we're able to, be fresh towards the end of the game because the defense isn't on the field. We used to complain about Heupel and how quickly his drives could be, where the defense was just gassed by the end of the game, and so, this is more of, a methodical brand of football that we kind of got used to with O'Leary. But I mean, even O'Leary had, certain years with guys like Blake Bortles and Jeff Godfrey, where he did open up the playbook and we had more exciting offenses from the quarterback perspective.
Wow. Charlie Taff did that. And
he did. He did.
You think about it, O'Leary ball was Kevin Smith running it 35 times a game, but even that's less than 56. That's less than 56 times that we ran it in this particular game. We ran 56 times. That's a lot of running plays. Now, that's, to me, when I see that, when I watch the game, I was thinking, this is SEC. Well, I was thinking, this is SEC style football. This is SEC style football.
Well, yeah.
And to me, this week, it felt schematically planned this way because the number of attempts that we had. Now, that being said, if you're running that much, you are going to, and still averaging 5 yards per carry, why would you ever go away from that?
Well, that's
you're constantly going to have a third or fourth down.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know how many of the 16 JRP runs were design quarterback runs. I don't know. I guess I didn't really break that down.
16 passes.
He also carried the ball for 16
He carried
times.
the ball 16 times.
For
he had
108
16
yards.
pass attempts. You're right about that.
Yeah.
But he had 16 rushing attempts as well.
Yeah,
I don't know how many
16.
of those. I don't know how many of those 16 runs that he had were planned quarterback runs. That's a lot. If even half of those are planned quarterback runs, that is a decent amount to kind of put your quarterback out there and hey, 100 yards rushing, 6.2 yard average, I'll take it. But by the same token, you are kind of putting him in danger there. And yeah, we had some players. We had a lot of personnel in the running game as well. We got R.J. Harvey involved a lot in this game. Johnny Richardson still did his thing, and Bowser, continues to show his versatility in this offense.
He does, but I'm going to interject here because you brought R.J. Harvey up, and I was going to do that shortly. We need to play R.J. Harvey. Like, in fact,
oh yeah, that burst was ridiculous.
I would rather. I love Bowser. I love Bowser. And you guys know that I talked about him endlessly when he first got here, and nobody even knew that he was going to play. I didn't know he was going to play either. But I talked about him endlessly. But R.J. Harvey is, if you just look at this game, 6.1 yards a carry versus Bowser's 3.7. And I think they really didn't have that. They really didn't have that. They really didn't have that. Bowser didn't run the ball that many more times. He ran the ball 6 more times, or what? 5 or 6, 7 more times. 7 more times. I'm bad at math. 7 more times than R.J. Harvey did, and R.J. Harvey, 6.1 to 3.7. It's pretty clear right there that R.J. Harvey has something a little bit different than Bowser has.
The thing to your point, and I think this reinforces your point more than anything, is what plays they were running with R.J. Harvey. They weren't running or bouncing him at the outside or using him as a change of pace back or anything like that. They were running the plays that you would run with Bowser with R.J. Harvey. Right. And he had 12 attempts for 74 yards. And the biggest difference that I saw, and Bowser played way better this game. I don't know if you guys watched.
He did.
He played way, way better on his running attempts than he did all season. However, the burst that R.J. Harvey had, he got from 0 to full speed in maybe 2 steps.
Right.
And that's what I see that's missing from Bowser. He isn't as fast as he was last year.
There's something completely different about Bowser this year. Something completely different. And I don't know what it is, because I've tried to, I still think that he's a little bit smaller than he was, maybe trying to be a little bit more healthy and more, all around doing more cardio or something. I don't know. But 6.1 to 3.7, you put Bowser in on the short yardage stuff, but let R.J. Harvey freaking run the ball a little bit more.
Yeah, I think last week we talked a lot about how the certain plays run for Johnny Richardson, running to the outside, off tackle, and Bowser seemed to be a one gap, star, so the defense kind of is keying in on that and understands what it is. Now, it seems like R.J. Harvey is providing this really kind of slick combination of the two running backs in Richardson and Bowser. And he kind of has the speed, certainly not this, crazy speed and quickness of Richardson, but he's got some burst as Roger just talked about. So he kind of has this little combination of the two, running backs that we have besides him. And so I think that's what's earning him the extra plays and the extra playing time is he's showing that he is capable of having the strength to run through defenders and run through the gaps straight ahead, north south in the line, but he also has the speed to get to the outside and kind of get to the second level quickly. So that's exciting, and I think he's showing us all going into fall camp last year why he seemed to be in that running back one slot before
and he probably
got
should
that
be
horrible
again.
injury.
He probably should be.
I think he's working his way towards that.
I think he is too. I mean, with a performance like that, you have to be. Like, I'd like to see, I'd actually like to, nothing against Bowser, but I would like to see a game with RJ Harvey as the Bowser, job, the running back.
Yeah.
I mean,
doing the job.
Exactly the same, the same plays, whatever.
Yeah.
I would just like to see the real contrasting difference between the two of them and just see what would happen. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I think Bowser has not only gained favor with Gus just overall,
well, of course.
From his games
Bowser's
last year,
Bowser.
But also he has been a great blocker this year, both in the running game and the passing game. But also he made some great plays outside of his running this game. I mean, there was a JRP fumble that he absolutely, saved that possession by jumping on it and getting in there and making sure that he came away with that ball.
Right.
So Bowser's certainly fighting for us. It's
and I'm not saying he's not.
Harvey is exciting.
Yeah, Harvey just has that extra stuff. I want to go back to the quarterback thing for just a second because I want to ask a question. Hypothetically, would you rather have a quarterback that was average at running and average at throwing the ball, or would you rather have a quarterback that is better at throwing the ball versus running the ball, or vice versa?
Ben?
I think if you asked me to choose, I'd rather have my quarterback be able to, if his skill set, his best skill set, he's elite at passing the ball, then I'll take that over any of the other,
options,
possessions or options that you just laid out. I'll take the arm, arm strength, arm accuracy,
arm versus
an elite
runner.
passer, not a very good runner over the others, regardless of,
Roger, what about you?
Today's scheme.
So I think it's a great question. And I think that I'm going to answer this two ways. One,
So you're going to go all the way around it and not really answer it at all?
No, I'm going to answer it.
I'm messing with you.
But I want someone who specializes in something, right? Because if they specialize in something and is really good at it, I can offset that with other skill players. And so the example would be this team that has a running back stable that's ridiculous. So if I had someone that was really, really good at passing, I would love to have a good, solid passing quarterback in this offense with the stable of running backs that we have. That would be my preference. But I would want them to be good at one thing or the other and then offset with the special with the other team members. And so for me, for this team, I'd want a great passing quarterback to pair with these running backs.
Right. Okay. Well, that's not, it's just, that's not what we have. We have a guy that's really, really, exceptional at running the ball. I think that there's a reason why he probably played wide receiver. I'm just going to say it. There's a reason why he played wide receiver and not quarterback at Ole Miss. Because their quarterback, the guy that they did have, was an incredible passer versus, a guy that, sometimes was a good passer, sometimes wasn't, but he was awesome at running the ball. He would be a great running back.
Now, to be fair, though, I think that if we had, and I love Mikey Keene.
He's not an elite passer. I'm not saying that he's I'm not saying that.
I think we don't have that on our roster right now.
I think we do on our roster, but he's not playing.
Oh, really? Who?
But I think Tommy McLean is going to be that elite passer.
Timmy?
You mean Timmy?
Timmy, I'm sorry. We have a Timmy and a Tommy. So I get him, but I'm talking about McLean. I think that I can't wait to see him in a UCF uniform and a system. I can't wait.
Well, you have to wait till next year because he can't play this year.
Well, I understand that. But I'm just saying I think he has elite skills on both sides of running and passing the ball. in my opinion.
All right. So to Ben's point on this question, I just saw this. Shout out to Rick on the dungeon for this because I happened to pull this up while we were on here. There's a comparison here between Mikey Keene and John Rice Plumlee in their first 4 games. Games won for each of them, 3-1. So they both won 3 games and lost 1 game. Mikey Keene's attempts versus completions is 69 for 112 or 61.6%. John Rice Plumlee, 69 for 117 for 59%. Now, that being said, that's not adjusted for the 13% in drops, right, that we talked about earlier.
Also not adjusted, also not adjusted for Mikey Keene being a true freshman and Plumlee having 4 years of experience.
He doesn't have 4 years of experience.
3 years of experience then.
He didn't have 3 years. He had 3 games worth of experience at Ole Miss. We talked about this before. Up until this game, Mikey Keene actually had more experience.
Of football experience. I'm not talking about just quarterback experience. He's a 5th-year player, isn't he?
No, I get that. But to me, other than physicality and what you do in the weight room,
no.
A quarterback specifically, I think that they're basically even from that perspective.
I don't think
that's
so.
just my take on it because he didn't play quarterback. He didn't play snaps. He didn't do anything as a quarterback. We can disagree on that.
Yeah, I mean, I disagree because from your very first freshman year to having 4 years of playing college football or 3 or whatever it is for him, there's a huge difference. Huge difference. I played the game in college. I know what it's like to be a freshman and then to be a senior. It's a huge difference. You just get used to the speed and the adjustments and everything you have to do as an athlete. So, yeah, I don't think that's a fair comparison at all.
With the exception of the fact that quarterback is a different level of skill set and thinking than it would be for other single positions that are only doing one thing. Receivers just catching the ball. That's all they're doing. They're not having to read defenses, set protections, do all that stuff at the line.
So you don't think think that they read any of the defense, and you don't think that they know what's going on out there with the defense?
They're doing it for their position and what they have to do. They may have options on a route, just like the difference between Josh Heupel, where he basically didn't even teach route trees. Like, yeah. They do have to think about that, but they have to think about it for their position and one guy, not an entire defense. It's, to me, a completely different thing.
Okay.
So that's just me.
Yeah.
That being said, going back to what I was saying, TDs, 5 for each of them. And again, John Rice has 5 that have been dropped. 3 interceptions for John Rice, 0 for Mikey Keene, and 641 yards for Mikey Keene and 827 for Plumlee. That's the difference. So Plumlee actually has more passing yards than what Mikey Keene has with the same number of completions. So for those people that are out there comparing
much better wide receivers this season versus Mikey Keene's.
I agree with that.
But they are dropping the ball.
This season
but we have a lot of drops though.
Some of that is not knowing where the ball is coming from with the receivers.
So the entire time the two of you have been talking about this, I've watched the Kobe Hudson drop this is probably my 15th time in a row that I've watched this now. And it was a dime. It was a drop, but what I do like seeing is what happened after that play on the sideline. You see John Rice run to Kobe Hudson, put his arm around him, talk to him for a good, however long the cameras were on him, and you could tell that the quarterback was talking to him about what happened and making sure that he was going to make the next play. And
as he should,
hopefully those leadership traits, continue to grow with JRP. Hopefully there's a trust level that builds with his receivers, because what we do know is that he's QB1 and he's not going anywhere this season. I mean, it's going to take It's going to take something that nobody on this podcast and nobody in Knight Nation wants is something catastrophic for that to happen, for him to be supplanted. I mean, he's our quarterback, unless he completely falls on his face, which again, nobody wants, because that means that we're losing horribly.
Agreed.
And so
that's
I'm
my quarterback.
I'm hoping that keeps it going. Yeah, I'm hoping that keeps it going. So, we'll see.
And I know that, I come down hard on the guy, but it's so frustrating. Like, I love to see him run the ball, but I cringe every time he passes the ball, to be honest with you. I worry every time
I did the
he passes
same last season, but for a different reason.
Well, true freshman versus, I don't know. We should have asked Trey about that, I guess. But
we can next week.
The difference between a true freshman that really probably never expected to play at all in his mindset, versus a guy that is, I was a wide receiver, but I'm more of a quarterback.
I think what we like about Keen is not only is what you just described, and the projection that we were hoping we would see if he would have won that job this season. The potential, the flashes of it that we might have seen last season, especially in the bowl game.
Everybody's favorite quarterback is always the backup.
And that was going to be thanks, Roger. You said my last sentence. So yep, you're right. Yep, you are right.
Yeah.
Great minds, Ben. Great minds.
Yeah. Well, I don't care who it is. I don't care if it's Mikey Keene, if it's Tommy Castellanos, if it's Timmy McLean. I don't care who it is. I just want better quarterback play, period. Because I think that this is really going to show its ugly head when we get into conference play.
I mean, it's coming up. I mean, we're playing a team that are as good as our defense is this week, and the struggles that they've had. SMU and the rest of the American, us included, has certainly had its struggles this year. It's a kind of a strange year in the American, but SMU, there's no doubt about it. They can put some points up on the board. So as good as our defense has been, we're going to need some support from the offensive side. We're going to need to produce some points and make plays. So I'm hoping that this starts this week.
Imagine when we play a real run-stopping team. We got issues, and that's what happened. What happened with Louisville. To be honest with you, they stopped the run.
The two that I'm worried about, honestly. So I'm gonna take a couple attacks on this. One, Tulane and Cincinnati are who I'm worried about defensively, because Tulane, I watched them play a couple of games, and they have a really good defensive line. The other thing I'll say is all four of the teams that we've played have quarterbacks that are dual threat quarterbacks, right? And more running than, because, I mean, look at Sims. He's more of a running quarterback than a passing quarterback. He was very flaky. As always, they have their best games against us for some reason, right? But at the end of the day, those defenses are playing against someone who's a dual threat quarterback week in and week out, and in Sims's case for 4 years. So it'll be interesting to me, because a lot of the offenses in the American are air raid style offenses, and these defenses don't see that very often. So, if you play a 3-5-5 like Cincinnati played against us with Dylan Gabriel, that's not going to get you very far, because we'll be through the gap and into the second level with either our running backs or with our quarterback before you can get to the play. So it's going to be very interesting for me to see how our offense does and what Gus does with our offense, as we start playing more of these teams.
I just think the limiting factor of our offense is John Rice Plumlee. He is the limiting factor of the entire thing, which sucks.
And he's also the best equipped to run the style of offense that Gus likes to play, and that's the catch-22.
I don't know if I agree with that totally.
Mikey Keene can't run it.
Why not?
We changed our entire.
Why couldn't
he's not
Mikey,
a running quarterback?
Yeah, but
he's not.
Yes. Did he have the opportunity to run the ball very often?
Towards the end of the season.
When he did, what happened?
Not much that I remember. I mean, he had
I
a few
remember
good
like a
runs here and there.
34-yard run or whatever that he had in one game, at least. There was a crazy run that he went on, and we're like, oh my God, he can run the ball. He ran the ball on his high school tape all the time. He was a dual threat quarterback. Like
he did, and I remember we talked about it when we were recruiting him.
They weren't,
but at the same time, go ahead.
I just don't feel like that. I don't know. I don't feel like that he has gotten a fair thing in all this, in general. Just, I don't know. I think Plumlee, for the most part, is one-dimensional, and I just think it's going to lead to a lot of problems. So,
well, I hope for all of
and
our
you may
sakes
be right.
that that we're able to see some progression out of JRP. But
Jeff Sims, by the way, was 21 of 32 for 314 yards, one touchdown. He got sacked 4 times.
This game.
So when he was on his feet, doesn't matter any other game. None of the other games matter except this game, because that's what we're talking about. 21 of 32 for 314 yards. Yes, he only threw 1 touchdown, but and he was sacked 4 times. But still, like, he ran for 11 times for 61 yards that turned out to be 38 because he lost 23.
Yeah, and one of them was that long run that he had.
The longest was 17.
Yeah.
Plumlee's longest run was 28. So, I mean, I don't know. It just
so I think
the quarterback is such a big important part of the thing, and this is why I brought that up earlier. Like, which would you rather have, or would you have somebody want to have somebody that was, because we compare him a lot of times. We do compare because he wears the number 10 and everything else. We talked about this. You'll hear this later with Trey talking about how we compare every quarterback to Mackenzie Milton. Mackenzie Milton was one of those guys that was equally great at both things.
Yes, agreed.
He is also a generational player. Like, it's just
agree
tough.
with that
True.
too.
Yeah, I agree with that too.
It's just tough. It's tough to. I mean, we're just not going to see Mackenzie again. Like, we even thought Dylan Gabriel was KZ 2.0. I mean,
he was a little closer. But
I'm just saying,
from a passing perspective, he was
not from a running perspective.
Not from a running. I mean, he just had the combination of both. But really, it was even more so than that combination you just described. I mean, it's everything about him: character, leadership, everything about him.
Right. And it's unfair to compare everybody to him.
Right. I mean, I said, generational player for UCF.
But he was like the all-around, like, very equal on both sides. Could run and could throw. Like, great. Like,
yeah.
99 on NCAA football or whatever, 112.
So
112, 110.
So not to.
That's why you got the 10.
Exactly. Yeah.
Not to switch gears, but I think we've beaten the JRP train to death. Or the
no,
horse
I know.
I
just I'm so disappointed though. Like,
defense. Can we talk defense? Maybe.
Before we get off the offense, there's just something I want to mention moving forward that I hope we see more of, and I imagine you guys would agree, is it seems like Johnny Richardson is kind of showing a little bit of flashes, not so much in this game because there was really no passing in this game, but it's just I'd like to see, possibly what he could do on the outside, playing a little bit more of that, out of the backfield or Otis Anderson type, role. I'd like to see him flex his versatility
he was
as a
very
receiver
upset.
or as a or as a wide receiver, or as a running back, of course. Just getting him into space, I think, is going to be, and could quite frankly help Plumlee, out, as long as he can get it to him, because, you're right. I mean, at the end of the second quarter,
that one,
there was
the one that was
big
thrown
mess
behind him, and he was very upset by that. You could, and I don't know what he was saying, and I think that I don't know. I watched that over and over again. That was one of the things that I watched because I was trying to see what he was saying, but I couldn't read his lips. And I think somebody said something to him from the sideline as well, like knock it off, like shut up or whatever. But he was very unhappy.
Yeah. So Ben, I think, that's one thing we missed on Bowser from last year, because he was catching a lot of balls out of the backfield. And I think this year what they're trying to do is kind of insert Xavier Townsend into that type of role. Because I think if they can get him going, get him open in space in the short field and let him run, that opens up O'Keefe again. Because they're clamping down on O'Keefe. I mean, hardcore.
It always happens when you show, such brilliance as he did last year as a player. It always happens. Like, you're going to be the target. You're going to be the guy
100%.
that everybody, schemes against. So that's just part of being a really good football player.
Yeah, I'm interested to see how that kind of plays out in these next few games. Certainly the remainder of the season in general. Johnny Richardson really brings a lot of great things to this team, and I'd love to see him get. So I agree with you on, Xavier Townsend. I think, he is going to be great for us, but I'd like to see him just, gain a few pounds, gain some strength, like not just rely on the speed. And, he's a freshman, and he's going to have to kind of grow into that role. O'Keefe showed the same types of flashes that we're seeing from Xavier Townsend in his, freshman, sophomore years as well. So I think we got some talent. There's no doubt we have some talent, on the offensive side. It's just, man, it needs to come together a little bit, in a more balanced way, that's for sure. And it starts with the quarterback, but it also our playmakers have to be that. They have to make those plays and have to step up when their numbers dialed up.
The competition gets a lot, stronger, going forward.
No doubt.
In my opinion. Conference play will be much different than these, out of conference.
And this is our last ride in the American. We need to show up and show out in every single one of these games in conference. There are no layups moving forward.
Yep, I agree. All right, let's take a break. We've gone an hour already. Let's take a break, and then we'll be right back, and we'll talk a little bit more. And then, coming up, this discussion with Trey and Neal is a good one. So hang around for that.
Hey, this is Travis Dever, Kai's Real Estate, the Dever team, New Smyrna Beach. Your source for real estate and everything else, New Smyrna Beach. Proud sponsor of Knightline. Call me anytime at 386-690-1636. That's 386-690-1636. Let me show you my hometown, New Smyrna Beach, UCF's favorite beach. Go Knights and charge on.
An auto accident can change your life forever. At Chad Barr Law, we are raising the bar on what to expect from your personal injury attorney. Hi, I'm Chad Barr, and I want you to know that our entire team is dedicated to providing you with the representation you deserve in your greatest time of need. If you or a loved one have been injured in an auto accident, call 407-599-9036 for a free consultation or visit chadbarlaw.com. At Chad Barr Law, our clients come to us in need and leave as family. Offices, Altamont Springs.
Looking for more out of your Porsche? Look no further than Flat6Motorsports.com. They have the widest selection of aftermarket Porsche parts anywhere in the world. With over 85 product lines and in-depth expertise, Flat6Motorsports.com is your one-stop shop for any Porsche performance needs. Whether you're shopping for intakes, exhausts, suspension, or tuning, they have you covered. Flat6Motorsports.com is the premier Porsche aftermarket specialist. Check them out at Flat6Motorsports.com. All right, well, we talked a lot about the offense on the first part of this whole deal. We should probably talk about the defense a little bit. I think, Ben, you brought that up, that maybe we should, or I don't know, maybe it was Roger. I can't remember. One of you brought it up that we should probably talk about the defense as well. So, a lot of sacks this game, which is kind of nice to see. A lot of disrupting the quarterback. I like that.
Yeah, there was a lot to like. Go ahead, Ben.
Just overall, I mean, I think that while Jeff Sims and the Georgia Tech offense did gain some yards on us, and they did have some plays, especially against our secondary, but even all three levels of the defense, I think, stepped up when they needed to. We got some fumble recoveries, and we forced turnovers or forced a negative play. It seemed like every time that Georgia Tech was like gaining some momentum, our defense stepped up and made a big play that completely turned that momentum back in our favor. And once again, we've got our leading tacklers on the team coming from our linebacking unit. Jason Johnson continues to shine.
What a stud.
I think he's really, really doing well for us.
I love getting these kids from the FCS that, played hard there and then come here and show that we've had, two of the leading tacklers in the FCS 2 years in a row come and play for us. And, they probably should have been playing in the FBS anyway. So,
three FCS All-Americans in 2 years.
Yep.
Yeah, he's a really good combination of size and speed. I mean, I think he's, it's great that he's, come in and made such an impact. That's another special one, along with Yates. Even, he didn't have he only had one tackle in this game, but he made some plays as well. I mean, our linebacking unit is just interesting. Yeah, it was a sack, right? Yeah, so.
4 sacks, 2 forced fumbles, no interceptions. Lots of 4 quarterback hurries. That's still quite a bit, though, when you have 4 sacks as well. So, pass breakups, 4 as well. Devad Wilson, Quadric Bullard, Josh Salazar. He's coming along really good, too. He had a great game, Josh Salazar. He's kind of showing some of that stuff that he had in his first year when he was.
Yeah, didn't get a sack, but 2 QB hurries in this game. I mean, he seemed to be in the backfield a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, for me, I agree with you on Salazar, and I think, the thing that's interesting to me this season, it reminds me a little bit of the 2013 Knights in the sense that, they played a lot of zone this game versus man, and we talk about that a little bit with Trey a little later on, which it was more of a bend, don't break kind of deal, because they were picking apart the zone. Credit to Sims because he was picking apart the zone. But 5 trips to the red zone, they came away with no points. Now, 2 of those were missed field goals. So they're getting a little Obarski'd. However, they still stopped them from getting into the end zone. And then 3 of them, they stopped them altogether. So this team all season long has seemed to be really, really good, at stopping teams in the red zone. And so if we can either limit folks to 3 points, or we can limit folks to no points when they're within 20 yards, that bodes really, really well for the season. And, we had that 1 turnover, including the fumble. And then, from a special teams perspective defensively, I don't know what happened to our special teams, but we had another block this game. Quadric Bullard was involved with this one as well. This time he picked it up, but he blocked one, 2 weeks ago? This team, from a special teams perspective on punt and kicks, has been really, really good at blocking kicks and punts. So really, really excited about that. The McCarthy nailed 131 yards, 3 punts for 131 yards, 43.7 yard average, and 54. And one of the things that's been really nice is that we don't have to worry about our punts being blocked because he's that Aussie style punter, whereas before we were worrying and we had several punts that were blocked that were detrimental to us. So, when we're looking at it defensively, Bullard also had 2 tackles for a loss. We had lots of tackles for a loss, 4 sacks. That's a number that we haven't seen this season. This was against the Power 5 offensive line. I was really, really happy how often we got into the backfield. And I think once we tighten up our zone play a little bit, because we played man all year long, I think this team's going to be, continue to be really, really good. They are top 20 in defensive scoring and defensive efficiency. Number 27. So that's really, really good, especially considering the defenses that we've seen the past few years. So I'm really, really happy with what they're doing.
Yeah, I think Travis Williams is doing a fantastic job with this unit. He seems to be making adjustments in preparation for every opponent, and making adjustments, mid-game based on what he's seeing. Saw some, I like the way you explained it there with zone play and how we haven't quite done that this season. So it kind of allows me to give the secondary a pass on some of the gash plays that we did have to the outside where Georgia Tech the receivers kind of got loose a little bit. Luckily, those plays didn't hurt us against Georgia Tech. I'm more, kind of concerned moving forward against a team like SMU that could hurt us. But hopefully that's something that we can clean up again. That's I'm confident because I've seen it all this season that Coach T. Will is really going to have this unit ready to play for every opponent. And even so, whatever he sees in the first quarter, second quarter of the games, that he's going to be able to make adjustments and have them in the right spots. It's really been an impressive unit this year, and I'm glad the special teams is coming on strong and as well. And defense and special teams certainly were the reason why we won this game handily. It was funny, it was relatively close throughout the entire game, but not at any point did I think that Georgia Tech was going to actually beat us. And I think that's because how well we were playing on those, on the 2 of the 3 phases of the ball there.
Yeah. Special teams, you brought that up in there at some point as well. And I'm super happy with the changes that have been made on the special teams, and I'm not nearly as worried about the defense as I was in the beginning. The defense before the season, it was probably what I was worried about most, and obviously that did not come to fruition. So that's a good thing. Special teams, though, Colton Boomer really had a great game, except one missed extra point or a missed kick of some kind?
No, he was 4 for 4 this game.
Oh, it was the last game.
He
okay.
missed one.
I couldn't remember if it was this one or that one. So that's good. And he hit a couple good ones too that were not easy ones.
43-yarder, I think.
Yeah. So I think that was a good change to make, and the punter, keeps them from blocking punts. And then was it Quadric Bullard that got in there again to block the punt this time?
He didn't block it. Ware was the one who blocked it this time. It was a transfer. He actually picked it up, though.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, he picked it up. So he's involved on 2 of these.
Yeah, that was a textbook blocked punt there because he did not run into the kicker or anything. So
yeah, Jarvis Ware.
All right.
Really good play on special teams there, and then it was just Johnny on the spot there for Quadric Bullard, who has been in the right place at the right time a lot. I mean, I think he's just got a nose for the football, and it was great to see him make that play and score some points there. Special teams. I mean, like you said, we had 8 points on offense in this game, wound up scoring 27. So, it was really just that they carried us.
The only thing on special teams, we're still having the issue with the holds away from the ball, and I don't get it.
I don't think the referees should be calling half of these because they're so far away from the ball.
Why are you looking
they're
over
ACC refs.
Yeah, I mean,
right? But
they're the same as our refs though. The AAC and ACC refs are
that's
the same.
right. They share.
Yeah,
that's right. They share. I forgot about that.
Yeah.
That doesn't bode well for the rest of the season.
Yeah, I just don't know why they're calling all
right
these things that they don't necessarily need to call, because that one holding penalty during the return had nothing to do with anywhere where the ball was going or anything else. So it was dumb.
But that's been all of them. They've all been away from the ball. None of them have been at the ball. They've all been behind the play. The player's 20 yards up the field if it's on the same side of the field, or it's been on the other side of the field.
Is that happening more and more in other games as well, or is it just us?
I've just seen it on us.
I
have not noticed it in other games, other American games, and I've also watched other Power 5 games against American teams, and I haven't seen that.
I just wasn't sure if that was something that they were really watching or something, that they've been talking about in their meetings at Waffle House or whatever.
I will say this: they're definitely smothering and covering those holds, but they were to do. That's 2 for me tonight. But the last 2 games, though, let's say this about penalties, because that was something we were harping on. 3 for 30. So Louisville had more called against them. FAU had more called against them. And when we played Georgia Tech, they actually had 8 penalties called against them. So including that crazy targeting penalty. But 3 for 30. And I think we've gotten to the point where we're now using penalties to our advantage. One thing JRP has done a lot of, and we saw this with Dylan Gabriel, is got PI penalties and offsides penalties. We've been using the clap count to get people to jump quite a bit. So it got to the point that even the Georgia Tech coaching staff talked about it before the game in their pregame. So I think we're finally turning the corner, hopefully. And I'm knocking on wood. I'm at a wooden desk. I'm hoping that continues. And
always knock on your head if you don't have any wood, by the way.
That's
what I do.
I'm not going to take that conversation any further. I'm going to knock on the desk. However, I will say this. I think that's turned to an advantage for us now in the last 2 games. I'm hoping we continue that.
Okay. Let's talk very, very quickly do we want to talk about the SMU game? Because we still have to get Trey in here, and we're at an hour and 17 minutes. This is going to be a long one.
Well, I've got a few things I can burn through pretty quickly.
Okay, quickly. Let's do that, and then we'll get to Trey, because that's 65.
Okay. So, Andrew, let me know when you want to jump in with the matchup predictor. So, first of all, big question is,
oh my God.
I'm purposefully not putting that in. I mean, I'm putting it in the notes so you know where it is, but I'm not talking about it.
I don't look at those notes.
I know, but you last time you said you took a second to pull it up, so I wanted to give
I've
you
got
your
it right
opening.
in front of me. Do you want to hear about it now? Yeah, so the matchup predictor says 71.5 for UCF, 28.5 for SMU. Right now, we are a 3.5 point winner. Favorite, yeah, sorry. I got a lot of stuff going on.
I got you.
I guess I should let everybody else in. I'm texting with a guy that is from Kansas City, and he's in Madeira Beach, one of my friends, and I'm trying to tell him, what are you doing there? Leave. Come this way. So anyway, hurricane's coming, buddy. Anyway, so I'm a little distracted. But anyway, yeah, 3.5 point favorite. I'm happy with the matchup predictor for sure. Yeah. I'm a little bit worried about their quarterback.
This is where Ben jumps in and says, we're still favored for the rest of the season.
No, I haven't even looked today. I just figured we were. I haven't even looked today. I imagine we are. I mean, I don't think much has changed. I don't know.
Wow. All right. The big question for me and the matchup predictor for me would be, will this game be played on Saturday? At this point, I'm guessing no. As Andrew alluded to, the most important thing is that everybody be safe. I hope UCF, they did say something earlier where they were closing campus, through Friday and they were planning on holding classes on Saturday. We talked about this a little bit in the break. I don't know if, we can get an equipment truck in, et cetera, during this week like you normally would. And we both have bye weeks next week. So hopefully if they can't play it, they'll just push it till next week. So, I'm going to give that a 30% chance on the matchup predictor of us playing this game this Saturday. I hope everybody focuses on being safe. And whoever that is in Kansas City gets out of Madeira Beach. Yeah. That being said, if it is played, it will be at 3:30 p.m. on ESPNU as of right now. Last game was on ESPNU and Andrew, to your point, that's why it took a little longer to get, there for the playback. The production quality actually is getting a lot better. Remember, we're responsible for that. We will be the toughest defense that SMU has played all season. We ranked 27th in defensive S&P. They have played North Texas, which ranked 118th and scored 48. They played an FCS team, scored 45. They played Maryland and lost. That was 66th and scored 27. And TCU, who's 58th and scored 34, which they also lost. So their quarterback, Tanner Mordecai, is a little interception prone. He has 12 TDs on the season, 5 interceptions. So for me, that tells me that they're having a tougher time with quality opponents. So they've got some, quote unquote quality losses. I know that's weird to say about Maryland, but they're actually playing pretty well. They averaged 38.5 points per game versus UCF's 34.3. They're averaging 506 yards per game versus UCF's 482. They allow 400 versus UCF's 313, which was an increase due to Georgia Tech's passing explosion, for lack of a better term. The Ponies are 2-2, and they're coming off of 2 straight losses. So last year, remember, they whooped us 55-28, but I think, anytime you're coming off of 2 straight losses, I think that's definitely in your head. So they can either take that as hey, we really need to get our stuff together, or if we get up on them a little early and and have some success, that may be something that kind of digs that hole a little bit deeper. They have 153 rush yards per game versus our 275 and 353 passing versus our 206. Tanner Mordecai was a 4-star recruit. And he's definitely a pocket passer type. They allow 180 yards per game, which is quite a bit for the people that they played against, on the ground, and 219 through the air. So I think that bodes well for us as well. Keys for me for this game is stopping Tanner Mordecai. He's the first QB really that we've seen this season that's a pocket passer. So I like our secondary's chances. I think we're going to focus on one-on-ones and, allow and focus the rest on pressuring him because we don't have to worry about him getting outside of the pocket. So I look for a big game for our defensive tackles. Look for Barber. He had a great game last game. I expect the same for this game. If we can get the turnover edge, or hold their passing game, I think this is pretty much an easy win. We can win with a really good rushing attack and defense if we need to. So I think as long as we can stop the passing game, it's basically what Tulsa did to them last year, and they beat them last year when they were so good. Our defense is a lot better this year, and I expect us to play ball control to limit the opportunities for their passing game, because where they're dangerous is big plays. So if we can limit the opportunities they have for big plays, it may be more of a boring game. But if we can run the ball, I expect this to kind of be similar to what we played to this year. And I think, we win this game.
Okay. Ben, anything to add to that?
He covered a lot of angles there, but I will say that I feel like we've talked a lot, and rightfully so. We've talked a lot about linebackers. We've talked a lot about our defensive line play this season on defense. I think the reason why we haven't talked much about the secondary is because for the most part, with the exception just a couple of plays in the Georgia Tech game, the secondary has really done their job. I mean, done what we expected them to do. We know that this is a very talented and deep unit that we expected to do very well in this defensive front this year. But I think this is the game. This is the first time that we're facing as Roger just said, a true pocket passer that has a lot of talent. And so I feel like some of the matchups that we'll see on the outside with our cornerbacks, versus SMU's wide receivers, I think will be a focal point, something to look forward to and see throughout this game. And it'll be kind of a chance for the secondary to not only just be a kind of quiet hero, that they have been this season, because I think some of the sacks we've had, or maybe even turnovers, have been caused by them locking up their wide receivers. So I'm looking forward to some of those matchups with some of the wide receivers that SMU will bring to the table. And if we do play this game, which, as Roger said, is a big if, I think the secondary is really going to step up and show us what they're all about.
They're going to have to.
Yeah, they have
That's
to.
what I can
right
add to that. Yeah, I mean,
you're right about
you guys
that.
Basically said it
100%.
all, but they absolutely have to. The defensive backs are really, really going to have to step it up in this one. So yeah. Okay, we're going to take a little break, and then we're going to be back with Trey, and then we'll be back after that as well. All right. If you haven't figured it out yet, I love Tijuana Flats. I would love them even if they weren't a partner with us on the Knightline Sports Network. They have all kinds of great Tex-Mex food, and it's fresh, by the way. Made to order burritos, tacos, enchiladas, chimichangas, quesadillas, bowls, nachos, and taco salads. And if you haven't tried the queso, you are completely missing out. It is the best queso that I've ever had in my life. Absolutely hands down. And the sauce bar that they have, everything from wild to mild in there. Absolutely awesome, awesome stuff. Not only do I love the food at Tijuana Flats, but I love the company, a UCF-born company. And they give back to the community with the Justin Queso Foundation. So head to your local Tijuana Flats. Tex-Mex for everyone. Hey Jeep Wrangler owners, have you ever sat in your office at work and watched the rain just pour into your Jeep because the weatherman said that there was a 0 chance of rain? Or you put your doors back on because there was a 100% chance and then not a drop of rain fell? Well, there's a company out there that can help take the worry away and give you the peace of mind to be without your doors. The company's called Life Without Doors. They make waterproof rain curtains and dash covers for Wranglers. Life Without Doors is there to help make the decision to leave the doors at home an easy one. Find out more at lifewithoutdoors.com.
Spice up your company with homemade marketing services from Tasty Gravy Creative. Tasty Gravy serves up a menu of budget-friendly marketing, graphic design, and public relations services customized to your specific goals. Co-owned by a UCF graduate, Tasty Gravy can help refresh your brand, strengthen your online presence, or reinforce your company's message. Contact Tasty Gravy for help with your website, social media, marketing, advertising materials, and more. Visit tastygravy.com.
All right, joining us again, Trey Neal. Trey, boy, this game was a pretty interesting game in many different ways, but 45 yards passing, I think that's what it was. That's pretty odd to have something like that. In my opinion, and I'm going to ask you a quarterback question, but I think it's pretty apparent to most people at this point. It seems like, though, that John Rice, when he gets flustered in the passing game, throws an interception, whatever, it's over. Like Does he give up? Like, I mean, I know he doesn't give up running, but like, it just seems like when he gets flustered, you know, or does something bad, overthrows, underthrows, throws interception, and then it's kind of over for him.
Yeah, I mean, that's what it looks like to me. I don't know if it's like you said, I don't think it's like a give up, like, oh, I quit, but it's like a confidence thing. I think they've got because again, we don't run a triple option, so 45 yards, that's fine for, you know, a triple op like the military schools. That's great for them. Yeah. But, you know, we're a spread kind of, you know, deal. We got, you know, the best athletes in, you know, out of Florida. These kids, these are the best athletes in the country, in my opinion. And I'm a Georgia boy, so, but, you know, you gotta utilize them. And I don't think he's been put, you know, in the few games he struggled. He's not being, I think it's a little bit of him not being put in in a situation to give him easy reads. And I think it's a little bit of that. And also, like you said, I think it's a little bit of confidence issues. You know, he makes one mistake and he just resorts like, hey, I'm not going to make any more mistakes. I'm going to try to win it with my legs. But again, it's not sustainable, you know, against, you know, a Georgia Tech team who I don't think is that good. And against a Louisville team who beat us, that again, I don't think they're that good in FAU as well. I don't think you can beat, you know, teams like that. But when you start playing, you know, you have SMU this week, maybe not, depending on the Hurricane. And then, you go against teams like Houston and Cincy, who are good teams, good programs as well, you know. Those guys are going to shut you down. They're going to try to take away that run game, and they will have plenty of time to prepare for it, and they're going to make you throw. And I think that's the MO right now on the offense. Shut down the run game, make JRP throw, and see where he can get you.
Yeah. Yeah, it seems like that's what most defenses are doing. And, you know, luckily with this one, with a few, you know, important things, I mean, you know.
Yeah, special teams won us this one.
Exactly.
Georgia Tech special teams lost it for them.
Yeah. But, you know, we have the kicking game pretty under control, it looks like, for the most part. I mean, doing a lot better, you know, with that. But that block punt was huge. Huge. I mean, it would have been 14-10 or whatever, you know.
Exactly.
14, but you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, it was a close game. Super close. Way too close.
Yeah. Defensively, though, pretty good, except for the burn on the long touchdown. What just your overall analysis on that?
Yeah, I mean, overall, I think the defense played solid. Again, I think being that it seems we're going to have to rely on them a lot, I think they're going to have to step up their game another level. I think that's a part of, you know, growing up. That's a part of you guys we're bringing back a lot of guys in that back end. We can't have those busts. You know, a lot of those guys that are starting, they were playing a lot last year, you know, and that's just my honest truth of it. I think the long touchdown pass, they put the safety, he was outside in a stack, and you know, that's just an uncomfortable position, but that's something you can't, you know, just depending on, in my opinion, with hindsight. He was outside the numbers. There was either going to be a fade or a post, so he just needed to trust his speed. And I think he kind of panicked a little bit, just in the sense that he's not used to it. Cause, I mean, I've done it too, so I'm not judging him, but you know, he just has to, you know, that's something you just got to get comfortable doing. And that's really what I saw. And then there was a couple of more mistakes, but that one specifically was just uncomfortability. You know, being out there, that's more of corner type of skill set, being outside the numbers and man coverage like that. But again, you got to do it, man. That's why you're out there. Those guys are a lot better than I was when I was out there, and they're a lot more athletic. So those are the things that they're asked of them. So they got to be able to do it.
All right, Roger, go ahead.
Yeah, a few things from my perspective. You know, we're talking about the DB specifically. Georgia Tech had a 6'7" wide receiver out there, and he was pretty quick. I mean, that's tight end size, to be honest. So I think you know, the matchups this week weren't as favorable. I think for our defensive backs, and we also played less man and more zone. Do you think that had more to do with their passing success? They had 452 total yards against us versus our 333, which is crazy. And 314 of those were passing. So I know we were trying to keep him in the pocket because he's a running quarterback. Do you think that zone, that combination of, you know, putting pressure and then dropping, folks in the zone, do you think that's more of it versus us playing man, in this game?
Yeah, I think truthfully, I think they dropped zone. I think they learned their lesson from Louisville of, don't blitz him a lot. Because if you don't get home, he's just going to jump out and run with the quarterback. Because the quarterback was really athletic. And I think he struggles a little bit with zone. So I think they were trying to, throw something different at him, make him go through progressions because he's not really strong at that. But, again, I think, if you're not, if you're not all together, know what's going on in the back end, you'll have those kind of coverage busts, which I think there were a couple that caused some, that's why there were some issues. Obviously, there's some things you take, some things you'll give up in zone, but I think that's just what it was. Because, again, the first 2-3 games, we've been a heavier, man team because we got the guys to do it. So why not do it and smoke the quarterback? But I think that Louisville game, we did it, and I believe he scored a touchdown, a long touchdown when we blitzed down our sideline. And I think that kind of just, if that didn't, that's where we kind of just like, let's not do it this time. Let's give them a different look. But again, that's 300, like you said, 400 yards is a lot of yards, man. And that, I know they're going to get it fixed, but that's a lot.
Yeah, I mean, for me, these guys have been used to playing, and nobody was bumping them off the line. They're used to playing physical. Now they're dropping in a zone. It almost felt like a different skill set for me. Do you think that's really what the big difference was in their performance this week? And I mean, they still did relatively well in covering, given how many snaps they had. But he completed 65% of his passes, and this is not something that he's known for. They threw some underneath stuff. Do you think that was the difference this week in how the wide receivers performed against these defensive backs? Do you think it's just the scheme?
Yeah, I think that was just, I think that's just what they were giving up. Again, in the grand scheme, they played well defensively, not a lot of points giving up, things like that. But again, what I've seen, we're a man team. We run a little bit of, some quarter stuff, some two stuff, but these guys are out there. They're Florida boys. They, let me match up with him and play man. That's what they can do. And that's what they do the best, I believe. So I think that's what it was a little bit. And again, the thing about, a lot of the passing and underneath stuff, some of that stuff does involve the linebackers. Safeties and corners, we're not always underneath in those little gimme yards and things like that. So some of those yards are kind of empty in the sense that there might have been a check down or maybe a little drag that went for 3 and turned to, 5 to 10 to 15 yards, where those are just, drag routes in front of a linebacker. You just got to tackle them, which I also don't think we tackled the best, especially early on. I think, there was a lot of explosives that are very, they were preventable if we just properly tackled. And I mean, I remember getting killed for it too, but that's a part of the thing about defense. The best defenses to me are the ones that tackle the best. So we got to work on it and keep on working on it. Cause again, we're about to get into conference play, and there are teams in our conference that will make you pay for playing how we're playing right now. So. Yeah,
that's what I'm afraid of. Sacks, sacked that guy 4 times, which was kind of cool. Salazar had a good game with that. Tremont Morris Brash, that was kind of a weird one. Which, you have to kind of, if you're getting the ball like that, picking the ball up off the ground or however you get it, you got to watch what's going on a little bit behind you.
Exactly.
At some point. And he was running out of gas, I think, getting down there. He's a big guy, probably doesn't do too many 100-yard sprints.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, I just feel like that he probably should have looked back at some point to see what was behind him.
Yeah, just a little peek. And if you're unsure, just, high and tight. I remember, talking about that all throughout, growing up. If you don't know what's going on around you, put the ball high and tight, and nobody should be able to punch it out, so.
Yeah. And we've talked about this punching the ball out thing, and that kind of losing tackles, but in this instance, it really helped him out.
Yeah.
So. I mean, honestly, I felt that was more on Newt because, he was over there looking at him at Brash instead of looking around for anybody to block. And that guy just kind of ran out of nowhere because he was booking it from the other side of the field, kind of like what we've done on a couple plays this season. And, that was his help guy. And he should have been able to block him very easily if he just kind of put his head on a swivel a little bit, but they were already celebrating pretty much going into the end zone, and Wilson wasn't looking for it. So I put that more on Wilson than I do on Brash, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I see that. That's one of those things where it's like, again, I mean, it sucks that it happens, but it was a little premature to celebrate. You know, Newt, he's not last line, but, you know, he's running with him. We did it with the other guy. We didn't get a fumble, but we had O'Keefe hawk a guy down across from the other side of the field. You know, you have to be alert for that, you know, just as a defensive player.
Yeah.
And even if you got to sacrifice your body, even if he just throws the blocks and he gets killed, at least it's a touchdown. So it's one of those things where, again, you know, Morris Brash has to stay high and tight, especially if you don't know what's going on. And then Newt's got to be a little bit more aware and celebrate, you know, once we get in the end zone. And then you can celebrate all you want.
Jason Johnson shows up again, 8 total tackles, 7 solo.
Yeah, he's a good player, man. He's really good.
Yeah,
he's catching my eye too.
Important spot in that linebacker spot, especially with Baptiste. He was in this game, but last week wasn't. I guess, you know, he obviously was good in the FCS team that he was on before, and now he is playing with the big boys here, so and doing very well. Obviously a very, very talented guy.
Yeah, he's talented. He's explosive. You know, that was the first thing I saw the first game. And, you know, again, there's sometimes you just need a few games to just kind of, you know, feel yourself out. You know, it's new, it's different. You know, it's just one of the things you just feel yourself out. And, you know, he's got 3-4 games under his belt now. And you can tell that he's confident because he's playing like it now. And, you know, so.
Yeah. Yeah, and there's a little bit of a different, there's definitely some speed differences, you know, not as much from high school to college between the FCS and the FBS, but there is a little bit of a difference there.
Oh, yeah. Especially, I always tell people, especially up front, you know, with, you know, front seven, O-line, D-line, all those guys, it's a huge, I think that's where the biggest difference is. You know, skill players are always, everybody's good that wants to be a skill player, in my opinion, if you're playing college ball. I remember we played Austin Peay, and they had a stud receiver who was killing us all game. And you would never think that. But again, the difference to me is like the O-line and D-line. You got guys that are 6, you know, maybe some FCS schools 6'2", 6'3", 300 versus, again, you see our guys 6'5", going up to 6'10", 6'11". So, you know, I think that's where, and they're athletic. I think that's really the only difference as you know, as we continue to go up and as we get to the Big 12 and start playing more SEC school, things like that. I think that's really where the only difference is up front.
Right.
And again, for him to be playing how he's playing, he's playing really well, and he's adjusting fast,
So kind of switching gears a little bit, you know, the first part of the season, we've played 4 mobile quarterbacks that are kind of known for being mobile. And so now we're kind of transitioning back into the AAC, and it's less about mobile quarterbacks, more about spread. And we have a lot of folks that we're going to be playing, including next week, Tanner Mordecai will be playing him. And he's more of a pocket passer. So, you know, couple of questions on this. How much detail is put into like game planning per team, you know, versus like your normal base, and how many adjustments are made? And then secondly, what do you expect to see differently from our defense playing more of a pocket type passer versus what we've seen the first 4 games?
Yeah, I mean, speaking on just the normal game plans, game in and game out, I think every game plan is different. Whether it's mobile guys or not, yeah, the game plan is going to have a little bit of similarities as far as, you know, for example, it'll be a mobile quarterback again. That would be kind of the thing you'd leave off with on a Monday. But depending on the guys around them, kind of changes, you know, how you're going to attack it as far as what you want to do personally defensively. If he has a lot of studs around him, you're not going to really want to blitz him a lot because he might just throw it up and those guys can make you pay. If he's kind of just the offense in itself, then you might, you know, try to do things just to contain him because the offense goes as he goes. So, for example, like when we played Quentin Flowers, in 2016, I remember he had a couple good running backs and the receivers. It was our thing was more, stop. We can't just smoke Quentin Flowers because he has NFL guys around. I remember Marlon Mack, Valdez Scantling, a lot of those guys, they were still out there with him. So, if we blitz them, they had guys to make plays, and we didn't want to put our defense in that kind of strain all game. But 2017 changed when he lost a couple of those guys. We tried to blitz him a lot, and granted, he's a great player, and he made plays, but that was our game plan. So I think it changes each week. And again, versus a mobile quarterback versus pocket. The thing about pocket guys is they want to be in rhythm, everything clicking, quick reads, being able to read the defense. So the best thing to do is try to move them off their spot, get them out of the pocket, get them, throwing, not where they just take their 3-step, 5-step drop, step up, throw perfect, like, pretty ways of playing quarterback. You want them to be uncomfortable, whether they're throwing on the run or throwing off their spot. So that's kind of the game plan I could see. Because most of those pocket guys are going to be good, reading defenses and making the right reads just because that's why they're playing. So I think that's just kind of the game plan. You want to move them off their spot, get them uncomfortable. And for example, we played Riley Ferguson when he was at Memphis, and we initially we tried to blitz him always to his face because he wasn't great at running to his left, throwing left versus running to his strong arm. He was right-handed, throwing to his right. There was a huge percentage breakdown where he was very inaccurate moving that way. So a lot of our blitzes were to his face with Shaquem so that he could, even if Shaquem didn't get him, he's making him run to his uncomfortability. So it's little things like that I know they're breaking down that kind of go into the game plan with more pocket kind of guys.
Go ahead, Roger, if you got something else.
Yeah, no, when I'm thinking about that, that's kind of like what we had talked about with Louisville, right? And what we should do with him. And I expect our guys to kind of do a little bit more man, because I do think we're going to try to make him a little more uncomfortable, especially if he's doing a 3 or 5 step drop in Tanner Mordecai, right? Because if he can get the ball out quickly, he's going to hurt you. If he knows where he's going to go, and he can get the ball out. I expect us to play more man and try to pressure him a little bit more, which is what Travis likes to do. I mean, he said it numerous times.
Exactly.
On the coaches, like Georgia Tech actually, and I think, were you here when O'Leary and Key left in 2015? Were they involved in your recruiting process? Or was that
Coach Key and Coach Becker? Well, Coach Beck was my lead recruiter, and then Coach Key was like the secondary. So I talked to him a lot, and then Coach O'Leary, he came up to my school quite a few times. So those are my guys that got me down to UCF.
Do you still talk to them at all? Because news came out. Jeff Collins was also part of that staff. Or he may have left already for Temple. I'm not sure, but
he
I
was
think
gone.
they were still part of that.
Collins. I knew about him, but I didn't have him yet. He was gone.
How does that make you feel as a player? Like if you're a player and there's a guy that's on the ropes, the Louisville coach was kind of that way, and now we've got Georgia Tech, and you defeat them soundly, and then they lose their job. But does that make you feel like you don't know? I think most people don't feel good about a coach losing their job, but does that kind of give you a little sense of pride or satisfaction there that you played well enough to make that happen?
I mean, I guess when you put it like that, I don't know how many guys we actually got fired when I was playing. So I'm sure it's awesome. You put in the sense that, we beat a guy so bad that, we got him fired. I think that's something to be kind of, yeah, we did that. I don't think it's something that you kind of ponder about too much.
I think with Jeff Collins, though, there was a lot more involved that he got fired for than the UCF game. The UCF game obviously was the final straw, but
yeah,
I don't
that
know
team
has not been successful under him at all.
In my opinion, I think that's what cost him. I think there was some interview where he was like, "I think we played really well." I'm like, I wouldn't say that. But
he had nothing. He had nothing else to say. I mean, like even the week prior, I was watching some of the interviews, and he's like talking about effort and all this stuff, and I see lots of effort and blah blah blah. But if you say that for 4 years and it doesn't transition to wins at some point, there's going to be a change made. And,
Absolutely.
It's not even him. I mean, Todd Stansberry, who was the former UCF AD, actually after George O'Leary left, so you may know of him a little bit. I don't know if you know him at all.
Yeah,
but he was let go too.
Yeah, I mean, it's again. I mean, same thing. In Nebraska, you can say it all you want, but at the end of the day, it's a production business. Not in the sense of like movies, but it's about what have you done for me. And if you're not winning games, who really cares about how much effort they're giving? Who cares? Everything's going to fall back on you. If you're not winning games and they're giving great effort, well, you're recruiting the wrong guys. If you're not winning games and you have talented guys, well, then you're not coaching them up well. That's the business,
All right.
So,
this is
that's just the reality of it,
Sorry.
I feel bad, of course, because that's somebody losing their job. But again, that's the business you signed up for. You got to produce. And then the same thing with the players. I know it's the same. It goes the same way. You're on scholarship to perform and produce. So do it, and if you don't, they find a way to replace you. And that's how it is. And it goes to, again, everything. But yeah, I've never really experienced, not that I remember getting a coach fired for our performance. So actually, maybe I think it was the Cincinnati 2017 they got fired that year. After that, I think so.
Possibly.
Was that Brian Kelly?
I don't know. It was before Luke Fickell was it? Not Luke Fickell.
Yeah,
Luke Fickell.
Yeah, Luke Fickell.
When did he get there? Because I remember we beat the crap out of them in like three, and the game rained out in 3 quarters, and we would probably put up 80 points that game.
Right, I remember that. That was crazy. Hey, I got a question. And this, just because we're talking about guys getting fired and so I make this statement all the time when people are comparing Scott Frost at UCF and Scott Frost at Nebraska.
Mm-hmm.
They're like, oh, he's such a great coach. Why wasn't he successful, at Nebraska like he was at UCF? And I always say, and you were a player on that team, so, you may be a little biased, but I always say that the success that happened here was the players and not the coach. That's how I respond to that question.
Yeah. So for me, I'm always big on, when it comes to sports, is always the credit always goes to the guys that are performing. Perfect example you see right now, Tom Brady in the NFL. Tom Brady's won 6 Super Bowls with New England, and everybody thinks Bill Belichick is and he's a great coach, probably the greatest coach ever. But you see him struggling now without Tom Brady. That's
he can't deflate the balls, man.
But like, you know what I'm saying? Like that's just the reality of it. The guy, you can, it's not the quote we always hear is not the X's and O's, it's the Jimmy and Joes. It's always the guys.
George O'Leary stuff right there.
Yeah, and again, I've been hearing that since I was in middle school. But again, I think it's Coach Frost when he came to UCF was like the jolt of adrenaline, the fresh breath of air that I think the entire program needed at the time.
Right.
But it was never like UCF, in my opinion, it has never been a lack of talent issue. As far as players, we've always had guys. And granted, again, the one thing that I do give Coach Frost credit for is nobody ever saw Shaquem Griffin as a pass rusher. I never saw Shaquem Griffin as a all-conference player of the year. Probably going to be, UCF Hall of Fame retired statue guy.
No question.
I never saw that in my first 2 years with Coach O'Leary, because he was never put in that position. He was a safety with me, and he was always big, fast, and explosive, but safety just didn't work out for him at the time. And I don't think it maybe wouldn't have done it anywhere. But Coach Frost saw the vision of, hey, Shaquem, put on 15, 20 pounds. You keep that same speed, you're going to be a monster on the edge. And at first, Shaquem he was upset. He was like, I don't know, Coach. I've been playing safety my whole life, as anybody would. So I do give Coach Frost credit for that. And some of the guys he brought in recruiting, and I tell people that's the difference. It's harder to recruit the type of players that he needs for his scheme to Nebraska. That's just the reality of it. Most
Really?
of these Florida kids,
because that's such a storied program. I've always struggled with believing that it's harder to recruit there.
It is. I mean, just because the life has changed, you know, this whole thing with the NIL, I think life's changed. Everybody, you know, most of the football, truthfully, is Southeast. You know, you get the kids from Florida, you get the kids from Georgia, you get the kids from Texas, you get the kids from, you know, Alabama, Mississippi, Tennessee, all throughout the Southeast. That's where the bread and butter of the best players in the country. Now, you have players, you know, here and there everywhere else, but the bread and butter is in the Southeast, and most of these kids down here don't want to leave the Southeast because, you know, it's always warm throughout most of the year. It's hot, you know, stuff like that. You go to Nebraska, you go even, you know, to Ohio State. Those guys, it gets cold fast. Like right now, it's the end of September. It's cold. It's not, you know,
it's starting
85 degrees, 75, sunny and 75. It's chilly. It's some days where you're wearing, you know, huge jackets, sweatpants, trench coats, things like that. So I think that's where, you know, life's just changed for that program. You know, back in the 90s. And I think the alignment
before that,
with the conference too. I think a lot, it's so much that plays into it.
Yeah.
I think that they shouldn't have left the Big 12 as far as recruiting wise, because they were getting kids from Texas. That was a pipeline, and Texas produces a lot of good kids. Now that they're in the Big 10, you know, who do they really, they're playing all the Michigan schools and all up there. Kids from Texas don't want to do that. If you could tell a kid, hey, come to Nebraska, win some championships, and you get to play Texas Tech, Texas, you know, TCU 3-4 times a year, they'll do it because they're going to be home 3-4 times a year at least.
Right.
You know, now. Right. So again, it's so much that goes into it that I think is the problem. But, yeah, back to the original question. I think, again, I think the guys always make the team. You know, I think Coach Frost at UCF, he galvanized us. He trusted us to use our talents and not be afraid of our talents and just don't be scared to make mistakes. I don't know if that's the case how it was at Nebraska. I was only there for a year, so I can't tell you how it's been for 4 years. I think they were on the right track before that first year, but, you know, things change. And I think, you know, again, it's a production business. If you don't start winning and then the way they're losing by one score every time, you know, guys get tired of it. And
well, his
you know,
former quarterback had a heck of a game this weekend.
Yeah, Kansas State. Yeah.
Saw a lot of what you would have thought that he would have had at Nebraska. You know what I'm saying? I knew the kid was good because he was going to come to UCF at one point too.
Yeah, I tell people that all the time. I'm like, that's the kid that I used to say, like, oh, he can be special. Because he was doing that as a freshman.
Right.
And I was like, he could be special. But, you know, again, there's so much that goes into it. Things happen. He got hurt a little bit and confidence. And then, again, you lose all those one-score games. Sometimes, again, you just need it. Maybe Nebraska just needs a new jolt of energy the same way we needed it when we had Coach O'Leary. You know, it's not necessarily that Coach O'Leary was a bad coach or anything. It's just some of the stuff gets old amongst the players, amongst the whole program. Some of the things just kind of wear on you, and guys don't perform well. That's where I think, again, back to the whole thing. It's about the guys in the locker room.
Yeah.
You know, you can rah-rah all you want, but those are the guys that make it go.
So I have a couple silly questions here. I don't know, did you ever player host at Nebraska? I assume you did at UCF. And did you see a difference? Because, you know, based on what you said, you know, people talked about being in Florida being an advantage in Central Florida specifically versus someone like in Nebraska. You know, did you player host in both places, and was there a difference? Was that a harder challenge to overcome in Nebraska on, you know, when you talked to these kids when they were coming in for their visits?
Yeah, it's tougher because, well, let me preface this. It's tougher to recruit the kids down here to Nebraska than it was to recruit, you know, kids from Nebraska, Idaho or Michigan,
or Nebraska,
Colorado to Nebraska. You know what I'm saying? Like it's a different dynamic. You know, when you're in Florida, I can tell you, we can get anybody in the country to have a great time in Orlando. I mean, it didn't matter. You come from anywhere, you'll have a great time.
Lincoln, maybe not.
Yeah.
What was the recruiting experiences like for them in Orlando versus Nebraska? If you were a player host, I mean, I assume you had.
When we were in Orlando, we take them to city walk. We take the parents. We'd have this nice dinners, all this stuff, Disney World. And, like that's top-notch wine and dining. They come back to the game, and at the time, we're freaking, 8-0, 9-0, 10. We're balling at that time. So we're hosting everybody, doing this, like, hey, come play this. We're a best team on the way, doing blah, blah, blah. At Nebraska, it's different. There's different selling points, I guess, because there's pros and cons to everything. In Nebraska, more of the selling points were, the fans selling out every game no matter what. Facilities were amazing. How much people, because again, the treatment is completely different. I can say that. Everybody knows you in the sense that, like, you walk down into a restaurant and people will stare at you because they know who you are. At UCF, the only time I ever saw that experience was when I was going to eat with Mackenzie. That was it, or AK. Somebody, that's distinctable right. Pointing to them. They didn't know who I was. Just me walking down the street. And most of the guys, unless they were just abnormally huge, like a Wyatt who's 6'7", Wyatt Miller. But for the most part, those are the only two guys that got that treatment. In Nebraska, they know who you are, all this, every move you do.
Small town.
Yeah, it is. And then I think, that's a pro to guys kind of filling in that NIL kind of thing where you can kind of make money off of that because guys want to see your face. They know who you are. You can make money. Con is you perform horrible. Everybody knows who you are. So like it's a little bit, it's different. And again, it's just harder because initially with Frost's offense, it's always based off of speed. And like I said, most of the guys that are those uber talented speed game program changing are California kids who they'll just stay out west. The Texas kids, which they kind of lost that connection. And then the Florida kids that are the Southeast, Florida, Georgia, Alabama, that area. And most of those guys will just like, why go to Nebraska when I can get the same exposure, blah, 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 and still stay at home? I'd rather go to FIU, or FAU. And even if some people I know, they treat a UCF offer higher than, a lot of these Power 5 schools because of everything Orlando has to offer, everything, moving to the Big 12, all of that. I mean, kids I talked to at my old high school, that's how they look at UCF. So it's again, that's why it's changing. The world's changing. Nebraska was great back then, but their selling point now they have to start winning games, or what's the point to go freeze your butt off? And I think that's a lot of schools, not just Nebraska. I think it's a lot.
And then Nebraska fans are like rabid fans. I mean, there's not a lot to do up there, compared to here where there's, stuff to do all the time. And no matter what the team is playing, like, we could always have more people in our stadium at UCF, in my opinion.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I remember we were 0-6, 0-5 early.
Yeah.
They were still selling out the games.
Right.
I mean, and I used to tell them, I'm like, that was like one of the things I would tell the guys. I'm like, guys don't understand how good you have it. I'm like, because I was on the 0-12 team. So I'm like, when we were 0-5, I could literally count on the sideline in warm-ups how many people were in the game, in the stadium, in the entire stadium.
Yeah.
Just so we had the dancing lady with the sign.
Just so you know.
Yeah.
During that 0-12 season, I was there at every game.
I appreciate it.
And I stayed.
I remember that South Florida game. I remember the guy with the trash bag. See, we couldn't see. We don't see the TV stuff till after. But I remember coming in the locker room and checking my phone after the game, and everybody's like, "The dude with the trash," like all my friends, they had not a trash can, a trash bag on his head.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh yeah, I can see him on the sideline. But it's one of those things where I remember like looking in the stands, and it is legitimately nobody in that stands. Like, but the kids in Nebraska, they don't know that. Like, they've been selling out for I don't know how long, 50, 60, something crazy amount.
Right. So I got it. I'm going to pull one other one out on you there. A little bit of a weird one, but it's in the same vein. Yeah, we did. We finally went down this rabbit hole. I knew we would at some point. I just didn't think it was this time. But I did it. So I took us down that, I think. That 0-12 season.
Mm-hmm.
What I kind of get what happened. I mean, everybody obviously kind of gave up on George O'Leary at that point. But as a player, What was that like? How did that whole situation, how did that unfold? Like, I've said, and I've heard from some of the former players from that team that, you know, we kind of gave up in a way on the season after a certain point.
Yeah.
And I hate to, I don't know, I kind of hate to bring it up, but then again, you have insight on that not a lot of other people do. And I think I had to talk about that season, the entire OH. Well, I had to do the show.
Yeah, I get it.
It wasn't easy. You know, and I just felt like after the Furman loss, it was done. You know, like, I think everybody just kind of was like, okay, well, this is how it's going to be. I kind of wonder if there was more intention, not losing the game on purpose. I'm not saying that, but I'm thinking maybe there was a little bit of intention and maybe swaying which way the program went when George O'Leary finally was gone. You know what I'm saying? Was that ever a thought that crossed your mind, or? If you don't want to answer that, you don't have to. But
no.
I just, it's one of those things that
honestly say,
I think everybody wonders about.
Yeah, I can honestly say going into that season, we would have never thought, as far as guys, that we would have lost every game. And I mean, as you see, 2 years later, we won every game. So, like, we knew we were talented guys.
A lot of the same people on those teams, the 2017 and the 2015 team.
Most of the same.
Now, granted, we had Mackenzie Milton and, you know, Adrian Killens, all those guys. But the core, you know, because they were young guys. The guys that led the team, led inside, you know, that the dark times kind of stuff, were those UCF guys. Aaron Evans, Shaquille, Pitt, Tony, all those kind of guys. But I think that, like you said, that Furman game, I think, was – because we lost to FIU. It was close. But when we didn't lose confidence until, truthfully, I think was that Furman game when we were like, all right, we're going to beat Furman, whatever. We're going to go to South Carolina, I think, is who we play next, and we're going to get this season turned around. When we lost to Furman, I think that was the first time we were like, is it us? Is it the coaches? Like, what in the – like, why did we just lose to a FCS team? Like, that was what we looked at. And, again, that's my whole thing speaking about confidence. All of our confidence were shot. Granted, we would go out and practice, but when your confidence is shot, it's like, what are we practicing for? We're horrible. You know, like, that's just how we felt as a team. Now, individually, a lot of guys, we still kept confidence. You know, I was like, listen, we're playing for more. I've always been, we're playing for more than just, you know, wins and losses. Like, you're playing for your pride. Like, I was a prideful player.
Right.
And, you know, everybody doesn't see it like that. And again, once you start losing, I can say that, you start seeing, you know, a lot of things kind of unfold. And I know a lot of the guys, there were guys that were playing that shouldn't have been playing, that we were like, Coach, these aren't our best 11 guys that are, you know, and it's things like that where that makes guys give up. It doesn't make everybody, but it makes a lot of guys, you know, turned off in the sense that, well, if you're just going to play him every week and he's horrible, why am I even practicing? And those are the kind of thoughts and those are the kind of actions that start infiltrating the program. And that's where it goes downhill. So I think it was a snowball effect.
How much was O'Leary involved in that at that point? Because Key was the head coach, right? And he had kind of taken off this mentor / AD role. I mean, how much was he involved in those kinds of decisions, or was that really Key that was making those decisions?
I don't really know as far as the big decisions. I can say that when Justin Holman got hurt, because he was coming back off of, you know, shared conference title, he was confident. When he messed up his finger, or his hand, that kind of threw a wrench into kind of what we were doing offensively, because I think our entire offense was predicated around him, Will Stanback, and Traquan Smith.
As it should have been. Not Bo Schneider or Tyler Harris or Nick Patty, because they're all great guys.
Since you mentioned his name real quick.
Was made. Like, we were running our offense through our three horses, like, and then Jordan Akins, but he ended up getting hurt too. Right. So, and I think that's another combination. We lost Holman second game of the season, Stanford. Then the next week we play Furman, opening kickoff, Jordan Akins tears his ACL. So we're talking about our 4 guys we're relying on. Now we're down to 2, and one of them's the quarterback. So now we got a true freshman quarterback.
If you listen to my show from back then, I called the Jordan Akins thing, by the way. Unfortunately.
He did.
He was dynamic at kick return, but he was too important.
It should never have been there. And I fear the same thing with O'Keefe back there and Flash, or not Flash, but, O'Keefe and Johnny Richardson returning kicks. I don't feel like those people should be returning kicks, period.
Who was the defensive back that ended up going to FSU that was really good for us? And then and then we put him out there, and this was like 2020.
Bam Moore.
Yeah.
We were up by, I think UCF was up by 35, 40 points, and they still have the starters up. That's why I'm always against keeping starters in uber long when you're up that much, because if you get hurt, that can change everything. And not just for the team, but for that player. I mean, Bam, he was in, but he shouldn't have been in that late. Granted, he made a great play, but what do you have to prove at that point? You guys are trying to, at that time, I think that was the Stanford year, I believe, where they beat Stanford at home, and everybody's talking UCF's making the playoff. Like, what is there to, it's so much more to lose when you lose a caliber kid like that.
Yeah. Jordan Akins, that was huge. I mean, that was.
It was him, Traquan, and Jordan Akins were our receivers.
He was.
those were the guys.
He was NFL talent at that point.
You're leaning on, a redshirt freshman in Traquan, who, granted, he's an NFL player, so he's a stud. But now you're putting so much pressure on him to be a monster when he might not have been ready for it. Then you get Justin Holman hurt. So now you're putting all your eggs into a true freshman quarterback who's been on campus for 3 months to perform at a high level, and a redshirt freshman who's never played college football to perform at a high level. Like, I just think that's too much to ask for those guys.
You mean like last season?
Yeah, and again, I think the expectations were extremely high for Mikey Keene, and then it sucks for him because now he's coming after the Dylan Gabriel getting hurt, and then Mackenzie Milton, that whole. Like I tell people all the time, Mackenzie Milton casts the biggest shadow on every quarterback that will come through here until the program gets back to that success level. Absolutely. Whether he likes it or not and whether he means to, that standard was set so high and how special he was that everybody that comes after him is going to be held to that standard for right or for wrong. And even, to me, love that JRP was willing to take it, but why give him number 10?
I know, I don't like it.
That's just me personally.
I've never liked it. I don't like it.
Now we're getting into this one.
I don't like it.
and there's nothing wrong with, I don't know him personally, but what just naturally as humans, you see number 10, people are going to make the comparison.
And a running quarterback.
I don't think he understands it. I don't think he understands it, to be honest.
Yeah, and that's to me where I wish that there was a continuity thing in the program, because personally, I don't think Coach Frost gives another quarterback number 10 after what McKenzie does. I don't think, truthfully, Josh Heupel gives another quarterback number 10 after what he does.
Yeah.
We didn't give out number 8 for a very long time, too.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I just...
We don't retire numbers, so, that's one of those things.
Well, Culpepper, we went 20-some years without anybody having number 8 for Culpepper.
And then it was Storm Johnson, I think, right? The first one?
Yeah. But see, and I think Storm got it. He's I don't know. It's a running back. You can kind of overlook it a little bit.
Well, I can tell you.
You take Mackenzie Milton, who played quarterback here, arguably the best quarterback here, if not top 2. But I say number 1 just because of the magnitude of what's going on. Yeah. Just the magnitude of what he did. Culpepper jump-started it, but McKenzie took it to national level.
Dude, Culpepper was national too. He was a big deal back then.
I can't speak too much to that because I wasn't, watching. I do remember playing with Dante Culpepper on Madden though. I remember this guy was a beast.
Yeah.
But at the time, I'm
what was he rated? What was he rated? Was he a 99?
94, 95, which when I used to play, man, that was super high. Like there was never anybody 99 that I remember.
Yeah.
But, again, I just think, so yeah, with him and McKenzie, like, it's one of those two. But let's say in the newer age of football, we'll say that. McKenzie's like, he's huge. So just to give number 10 to him, I think that puts a unknown pressure that he might not know, but like, we look at that number like, listen, you wear that number at quarterback, you're going to have to carry this program to heights, because that's what I've seen that number at quarterback do.
Yeah. So, and that number in other positions have been big as well. In fact, when I bought that jersey, I have a white number 10 jersey from the, 16 season or whatever. And that was Shaquille's number at the time.
Yes, exactly.
And I actually got that. I specifically went to find that one, cause I was a huge Shaquille fan, and I knew his parents really well, and I would always wear that. And then his older brother would always wear his 10 jersey. And then I remember, cause I would tailgate with Shaquem and Shaquille's mom and dad, their whole family, every tailgate. Like, we did it for years. Football will never be the same for me tailgating, even though my tailgate right now is awesome as well. But that was just, it was awesome.
That was different.
It was totally different. And I remember the first game that McKenzie started, I was wearing my number 10 jersey, and I go, oh, hey, I said to Shaquem and Shaquille's mom, I go, hey, there's another number 10 starting today. I said, there's going to be two number 10s, and it was McKenzie and blah, blah, blah. But I just, I always thought of that as Shaquille's number, not McKenzie's number initially. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But,
and I remember we used to tell McKenzie, like, look, Shaquille used to always be like, look, you have that number 10 on, you gotta be a stud. Like, I remember those conversations, and McKenzie was a freshman. And he was just like, I got you, big bro. I'll make you happy. And, was
he that confident when he was coming in? I mean, I know he was kind of a baller, and he seemed like he was confident. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Oh yeah. I'm telling you, I'll never forget him and Tristan Hill. Those were the two guys, like as true freshmen. Well, the big guys, me personally as a DB, I always knew that Bam, Richie, and a guy named Brian Brown, who ended up getting hurt. I was like, these three guys are gonna be these are NFL players.
Yeah.
Well, actually, Bam and Brian Brown got hurt, but as you see now, Richie's a freaking NFL player. But I was like, because they were studs, but the big guys were McKenzie and Tristan Hill. The confidence they came in playing with, you wouldn't have known they were freshmen, especially Tristan, because he was just a monster already. But the way McKenzie played, I'll never forget.
When he wanted to play.
Yeah, Tristan. Yeah, I mean,
did you guys see much of that in practice? Did you see that in practice? Did you see that in practice when he was practicing? Did he take plays off, or was he intense the whole time, or?
With Coach Frost, no, I never saw that with Tristan with Coach Frost. But I also think another thing was he had older brothers to kind of, keep him in check if anything were like that to happen. And I think that's huge. Because he had Jemias Pittman and Tony. Like, those guys practice hard, so Tristan knew he had to practice hard. With Coach Heupel, I really don't even know how that whole thing even started. Like, I was there for the spring, but again, I don't know why. That's not a question I'm going to ask a coach, like, why isn't Tristan Hill playing? So I truthfully don't know. I mean, you hear rumors all the time, but I don't have any factual reason to what was going on.
So you were, that's right. You just said something else that brings something else up. You played for O'Leary, Frost, and Heupel, at least in the spring. You were there.
Well, and Randy Shannon, really, because he had the defense.
Right, but.
Yeah, well, yeah,
but
yeah.
Still,
so that's another thing. We really
go ahead.
Never. Yeah, like, I mean, truthfully, when I was at least that spring, I never saw those guys interact ever. Like, in the hallway, they walk by each other.
Heupel and
Coach Shannon. Coach Shannon was over literally the defense. I didn't ask Coach Heupel about anything with defense. Nobody did. We just went to Coach Shannon, which that was new to me in the sense, like, I could ask Coach, for example, with Coach Frost. He knew everything we were doing on defense. He would come in defensive meetings, blah, 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 in the spring, everything. And then, like, he knew exactly, like, hey, Trey, why didn't you do this, blah, blah, blah. I know you guys are running this coverage. Like, he knew that. I never saw that. It was everything went through Coach Shannon, all of that. So it was a different dynamic. But, yeah, going back to what I was saying, I played with Coach O'Leary, Coach Frost for 2 years, and then Coach Heupel for a spring.
Yeah. Was it a noticeable difference in the building between the three of them?
Definitely. There was a huge difference as far as with Coach O'Leary to Coach Frost, because it's like a older, old school kind of guy to, the young up and coming stud. But from Coach Frost to Coach Heupel, it was different in the sense that, I think Coach Frost cast such a huge shadow on Coach Heupel coming in that he was never going to live up to those expectations either, which that's why I tell people, I'm like, he was never going to live up to those expectations because he was always on the losing end of the stick.
Right.
Whether he would have went 26-0, everybody would have said, these are with Coach Frost players, which it's true they were, and those guys were uber talented.
Right.
But, like, there was never going to be winnings. And then if you lose, it's like, how are you losing with Coach Frost players? Coach Frost just won with these guys. So, like, I don't think I would have taken this job coming off of that, but
there were huge expectations that were really never there before. After that,
yeah, they're still there. I mean, honestly,
they
still
still
here.
are.
Absolutely,
to me,
still there.
again, I tell people, I'm like, listen, I never want to be the bearer of bad news, but that 2-year run, the amount of NFL guys we had on that team, then driven by the engine of Mackenzie Milton. Until we get that quarterback part back, it's going to be extremely hard to duplicate that success because, you look at some of the best teams in the country now, a lot of them are driven by their quarterback. Sadly, and that's why, to me, I'm like, we need JRP to throw more because he's the engine that makes this thing go. Like, we can play as great as we want on defense, but you see 45 passing yards, you're going to be in games with a team who just, a Georgia Tech team who we should be beating by 40. Louisville team we shouldn't lose to. We should beat them by 40.
Yeah. Well,
so it's
so 2013 or 2017.
Who do I think is the better team?
Yeah, they both had a lot of NFL players. So you tell me.
Oh, how are we judging it? Because to me, we didn't lose. The 2017 team never lost. So to me, that's where it starts that conversation there, and then it ends that conversation. No shade to conversation.
All right.
I agree.
But I played with a lot of those guys. Clayton, BA, defensively, and all of them. Like I played with them the next year, so they would, that's like a little friendly thing we talk about, especially some of those older guys that seen both. But
South Carolina was no joke when we played them. We almost beat them that year.
Jadeveon Clowney,
we had Jadeveon Clowney, yeah.
Clowney didn't even hardly play that game though. But
yeah, well, exactly. So you put it like that, then it's like, well, how did you lose without the Jadeveon?
Yeah, he only played I think he played 4 snaps or something in that game. It wasn't very.
Yeah.
He was.
I don't know, but probably because it was so blazingly hot out there. I remember that game. It was one of the hottest I've ever remember being out there. I've been in a lot of games in the stadium.
Yeah, it was.
So yeah, it's all it's all fun and games. We just that's our argument point is, and then we tell them we were the number 1 offense in the country. The game is speed, and we're putting all of these speed guys and stuff like that. So, and then they they're a lot. I will tell them they were a lot more of a physical team than we were in the sense of, they had a great O-line that was physical. They had physical backs, stuff like that. So,
well, I will tell you this. There's a couple of O-linemen that played under O'Leary that also played with you on those teams, right? And that I talked to, and they said, if it wasn't for O'Leary, it was like the perfect combination of O'Leary's hard nose, technical, know-how, prowess, and physicality, and then having Frost come in, and with his upbeat personality and like you said, younger style. They said that a lot of that success was a combination of both of those. How do you feel about that?
Yeah. Oh, I 1,000% agree. I think that, Coach O'Leary made us, mentally strong in the sense that there was nothing that you could tell us that we couldn't do until we were able to do it ourselves. Like, you couldn't say, oh, this team is so great, blah, blah, blah. Everybody in that building used to be like, well, they got to show me how great they are. And that's how we used to play against teams. Like, when people were like, oh, you guys beat Auburn, like, how, they were so great. We're like, yeah, I mean, you guys say that, but, you know, these guys are human. Like, they bleed like we bleed. They have to show me that they're so much greater than us. That was our mentality. And again, we give that credit, you know, of mental toughness to Coach O'Leary, because he put us through a lot of those kind of stuff. But again, Coach Frost,
you remember Auburn wasn't motivated.
Yeah,
you tell me whether Auburn was motivated when you guys were playing them, because I saw a different game.
My whole thing is, I've never stepped onto the football field, whether it was 13-0 season or 0-12 season, and I wasn't motivated to play that game, or I wouldn't have played. Like, football is not a game where you cannot be motivated. So, I hate when people say, oh, they weren't motivated, because football is a sport where you run into other humans as hard as you can and you're trying to hurt them. Whether it's offensively, defensively, or you're trying to embarrass them. You know, like, it's one of those things where you can't not be motivated because you'll get hurt playing like that. At least that's how I was taught, and that's how I was raised to play football. Like, never play slow. You always play full speed because you'll get hurt playing half speed or not feeling like playing. So I don't
agree with that.
The whole unmotivated thing. Because if that's the case, you didn't have to play in the game. You could just sit out. That's what kids are doing anyway. Sit out the bowl game. Why not? But all those guys were playing. Kerryon Johnson was playing, NFL guy. All those old linemen were playing. Jared Stidham was playing. Darius Slayton was playing. All of them. Like, I remember, if you guys weren't motivated, well, why are you playing?
Well, it's funny, the Kerryon Johnson thing, because a lot of Auburn fans tried to say afterwards that he didn't play. I'm like, what are you talking about? He played the entire game,
he played,
especially at the end.
I'm not gonna lie, he was a monster to handle. Like, that was probably the most physical running back that I've ever played against. Like, he was as good as advertised. I will say that. He was running hard. Like, I was like, okay, this guy, this is the NFL kind of guy. You know, that's one of those guys where you have that moment, like, okay, I see him in the hole. There's going to be a couple business decisions made.
All right. Well, we have gone about twice the time that we normally go, which is perfectly fine.
It's not a bad thing.
Yeah.
It's all good for me.
We could talk about this stuff for hours.
We haven't even gotten to the USF game when we played them in 2017.
We will. We'll talk.
That was probably the worst game I've ever played in my entire career.
All right, we'll go down that.
We'll save that. Save that. We'll talk about
for
that
later on next episode. The worst game he's ever played.
That's a headline. Maybe we just Knightline, the worst game you ever played. I won't put all my little shenanigans in there in the front end. Just be like, this episode is the worst game Trey ever played.
Awesome, man. Thank you very much for going down those rabbit holes, by the way.
No problem.
Because
legitimately.
Some of that stuff can be a little weird to talk about sometimes, but I think you're far away from it now that it's probably a little better.
It's 2020. We're almost half a decade. I feel so old going around those guys, man. I'm like, you guys don't get our age, understand.
Yeah. Well, wait till you're my age, 49.
Yeah, I'm like, you guys don't even understand, man. Like, this happened. Like, all these guys. Like, I tell them some of the guys that I play with, and they're like, oh yeah, cool. Like, the only guys they know really are like, you know, Richie and Gabe. But I'm like, dude, they were freshmen when I was there. Like, you don't even understand, like, Jordan Aikens, Straquan, like, they don't understand. And even Clayton Gathers, like, he coaches for them now. I'm like, do you guys know who you guys are sitting with every day? Like, this is UCF, probably the best safety to come through here.
Yeah.
Like, they don't understand, so they make me feel old all the time.
Well, it happens. It happens, unfortunately. So,
yeah.
Hey, thank you. So before we go, we still need to get. I think we're playing SMU at some point. We are. We do need a score.
Next week.
What's that?
I said either this week or next week.
Yeah. But if we play, I'm going to go on a positive thing saying we're going to play. The hurricane will somehow go completely west and hit Texas or something. If we play that game, what is your score prediction for SMU and UCF?
I've been going a little bit higher scores. I'm gonna go. We're gonna
keep
beat
doing that. We're catching you now.
Yeah, but I feel like now I've always been conference play is different. I think it'll be a lot closer. I think it'll be UCF 31, SMU 23. I think it'll be a close one.
Okay.
Especially being that I don't know what we're doing as far as practicing.
Yeah.
So I'm a little iffy on.
UCF is a 3.5 point favorite right now in
3.5?
Yep.
At home?
They started 4.5, but the line moved.
Ooh. Okay, I'm gonna change it. 31.
Well, I shouldn't have told you that because I wanted to be kind of a hot take, but
31 to 20. I'll say 27. 31-27.
Okay.
That's
Bro, I already had mine in here, so I'm just putting this in here because, people now know that we record this first. I had mine in the notes before he said that, so when I reveal mine later, I'm just going to say that I had mine in the notes before that.
Yeah, we actually started as a 2.5 point favorite and went to 3.5. So something happened there.
Yeah.
So anyway, thank you, Trey, very much especially for being candid about that stuff.
Yeah, no problem.
I always wonder when I'm starting to ask a question, sometimes I'm like, man, should I, even while I'm asking it, I'm like, man, should I really be asking this question? You never know. So I appreciate that.
Go ahead and ask. I don't, there's no hard feelings anymore, man. I'm far removed. Like you said, I'm far removed from it. Most people don't even remember.
Well, I wouldn't say that. And I don't mean it like that. No. Wow. I don't mean it like that. I just said I said you're far enough removed where you can
far enough
confidently talk about things without like, but you had a very unique situation. You played for Frost in two different schools, and you played for 3 head coaches at UCF.
Yep.
There's not a lot of people that can say that.
Oh yeah, you see a lot with all that, but again, I give a lot of, I wish I could have.
The contrasts between UCF and Nebraska I find really interesting.
There's a lot.
Yeah. So,
a lot of different pros, a lot of different cons for both.
Yeah.
But, the favor is swinging towards UCF. That's just the reality of it. And I think, again, being candid, I think a lot of the fans in Nebraska have a false expectation of the reality of their situation.
Yeah.
That's just the beast they're dealing with. But hopefully whoever comes in next doesn't, because Coach Frost was put on, you're going to save our program, bring us back to national champ. It's like, whoa.
Yeah.
Like,
that's high expectation to put on somebody. They've put that on every single guy that's been there. Let me just put it to you this way. Since Tom Osborne.
There's a famous YouTuber for Nebraska, right? And he does this whole season, he's done his entire show from his bathroom on the toilet because in his words, the product on the field was the S word. And he signed off with that every single time. Yeah. So that's the state of Nebraska fans right now. They're that much into the drink. So, And
again, I tell people all the time, I'm like, listen, Coach Frost, when he was at UCF, that's the product that I invested in. It didn't necessarily work out in Nebraska. That's how it is. Yeah. But and for whatever reasons, but, I still think those guys are good coaches because we didn't see that the same success that Coach Frost had at UCF. Yeah, he didn't do it in Nebraska, but we haven't seen that back at UCF either. Whether it's for, like we said, the Jimmy and Joes it's completely different things. So, it goes back to both ways. You just have to appreciate what you have in the moment.
And I'm sure that, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
Yeah, whether we lost Coach Frost, I'm glad that he was there for those 2 years. I wish he would have stayed forever, as a lot of people do. But, and then all the Nebraska people, I remember, they were so happy. They thought they just, they got the homegrown kid back to come save the program. Yeah, that, and that's how it is. But again, things just don't work out. That's life. So
yeah, and I'm sure Scott Frost will be successful someplace else.
Yeah, hopefully he can.
Probably as a coordinator.
He's got to rebuild as a coordinator first.
Right. Yeah. But he'll be successful at that. I mean, because he runs a pretty incredible offense. When it works and he has the players,
it's a good offense.
Yeah,
I've told people that was the most difficult when we used to go against them in practice, just the personnel, I mean, they could go line up out of empty and then have the exact same players line up in old school I formation. Then the exact same players go triple option wing T. Like, it's insane to have to practice all that. You can't personnel it. And that's where I think he's at his best. If you can't get those guys, then I think you're going to struggle.
All about matchups.
So, yeah, exactly.
Yeah. All right. We're going to let you go. This has been absolutely awesome, though.
We could
really
go for
appreciate
another
it.
hour.
Yeah, we could, for sure, without question.
Absolutely.
But we will do that. We'll save that for another time.
Yeah, we'll talk about my bad USF game another time.
All righty, man. Thank you.
His worst game ever, folks. He's going to talk about his worst game ever.
Thank you, and stay safe here in the next couple of days.
Absolutely. You guys
man.
stay
Keep
safe.
in touch.
Absolutely. Well, definitely will.
All right. Take it easy.
All right. See ya.
I'm Jeff Allen. Join me each and every week on the Knightline Sports Network for the AAC Report. We bring you in-depth coverage of each school in football, basketball, baseball, softball, soccer, golf, tennis, and more, as well as bring you insider interviews and focus in on the biggest games and news of the week. That's all right here each week on the AAC Report, only on the Knightline Sports Network.
Welcome to the Tijuana Flats Hot Take of the Week. Visit TijuanaFlats.com for takeout or delivery, or visit your local Tijuana Flats. Tex-Mex for everyone. All right, well, I hope my Tijuana Flats, local Tijuana Flats will still be there after this storm. That's all I'm thinking, because I haven't been there this week. It's only I'm worried that everything's not going to be there. I think it's the end of the world, but anyway. I'm from Kansas. We had all kinds of tornadoes. I do not like these hurricanes. They worry me to death. Anyway.
Well, I mean, legitimately, though, hurricanes, one of the things that's a byproduct of those with these rain bands, even if you don't get a direct hit, is tornadoes. So.
Yeah, but they're not the same. Not the same tornadoes.
No EF5s around
here. These are little wonky tornadoes. Okay, well, anyway, Tijuana Flats Hot Take of the Week, one of my favorite segments of the show, where we give you our score predictions. Roger, I'm going to let you start.
Okay, so for my Tijuana Flats hot take, tornado take, hot take of the week. I kind of mentioned this in with Trey. He ended up with a 31-27 score, and Ben lowered me again. It was not in there earlier when I looked, but I have this score at 35-28 UCF. I do think SMU is averaging, even against good defenses, around 27-28 points. So I think they'll get that. But I think between our defense, I think our offense turns it on a little bit more when I'm looking at the defense of SMU. I think we'll do enough to get 35 points on the board. We had 2 TDs that were pulled off this past week, even with the offensive showing that we had. So I think 35-28, good guys for this week. And I do think also that Tijuana Flats will still be there next week for you guys to enjoy.
All right, good. Ben.
So 2 things before I say my score prediction. One, I'm tired of Roger accusing me of looking at anybody's score before I put my own in. So that's one. Don't question my integrity. Ben. Stop questioning my integrity, for one thing. And 2,
I'm going to make you start turning these in early.
And 2, I love how both of you just conveniently, just don't hey, let's not talk about who predicted the best score last week and who of the 3 of us besides Trey is.
Roger, give us an update.
Well, we haven't gotten to the series lead or anything yet.
Oh, yeah, we're just,
come on.
I'm just saying, we're not going to talk about that, I guess, because I was pretty darn close.
Yeah, you did look at my notes, right? You did look at my notes to see that, so you know that I had that
after
in there
I put my score
in,
Roger, which is 33-24 is my score prediction. And I looked at all that other stuff after I put my score.
I'm
in,
actually glad that you guys are not sitting in the studio with me right now, because I somebody's hands would be around somebody's neck at this point.
It's all in good fun. And
but, he could reach me. His arms are longer than mine.
As long as we stop saying that, I'm looking at Roger Phipps' score prediction to include my own. But 33-24 is my score prediction for this week. I mean, I think defense shows up, but does give up a couple of plays to SMU for them to put 24 points on the board. But overall, I just think that we're a better team than them this season. I think also there's a little bit of I would have loved to say the same thing about the Louisville game, but I mean, I feel like of the games last season, this is the one that, I mean, you could talk about Navy, but really this is the one that seems to bother Gus the most. I mean, just in his press conferences, I think it left a really bad taste in his mouth, and they really kind of wiped the floor with us last season. So I think we're going to pour it on a little bit, 33-24.
Okay.
You do know that Rhett Lashley was the quarterback for Gus when he was coaching high school football.
Yeah, a lot of connections there, yeah, for sure. And he coached with him for a long time.
There's most games, Gus is going to have some kind of a connection. He's been around for a long time, so.
This one's I agree. This one's definitely a special one, though. His high school quarterback, that's pretty crazy.
Yeah, that's true. All right, I'm going to go with 34-21. That's it.
34-21?
34-21.
Wow. Okay, let me get that down.
We are all close.
Kind of in the same vein. But, yeah. So 34.
I was hoping for another 70 score from Andrew.
No, I haven't had a 70 score this year, have I?
I know. I'm just going to speak it into existence. That's what's going to happen.
Well, maybe when we play, I don't know. I don't know who we could score 70 on. I don't see this team scoring 70.
The Cows. We're going to score. We're going to score 70 on the Cows. That's what's going to happen.
34-21.
All right, I got it.
And then
do we want an update?
Yeah. What are the standings right now?
Okay, so last week, Ben, as he alluded to, he did lead the pack. I do want to I did put an asterisk by this.
Of course you did. Of course you did.
Put my number in there. I'm looking at the document. You didn't put my number in. 34, you put a 2. Where's the 1? 21. 34-21.
It's there. 34-21. Your purple cursor's right by it, so I'm not sure if you're not seeing it.
Okay.
But it says 34-21.
All right.
I can put 34-2 if you'd like me to. That being said, Ben did lead the pack this week. He beat Trey. So Ben was number 1. He was 8 points off. Trey was 15 points off. I was very close with 19 points. And Andrew brought up the caboose with 24 points for the season.
That's all right.
Trey is still in a commanding lead with 39 points. Ben has taken over second place with 63 points. I have 70, so we're in a tight match. We're a touchdown away, and Andrew has 84 points, so he's a little ways off. So it's a tight race.
I am doing this the way the segment is planned as a hot
intended.
Take. As a hot take, yes.
That's right.
Hot take.
So he's bringing the hottest of hot sauces.
I thought the high score
bar.
one anyway.
Inferno.
I thought the high score one anyway.
The Inferno. He's bringing Hades with him. So the rest of us,
we're all going to be pretty close this week, I think.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, by definition, and on top of that, I hope we're all correct.
We've got a 31, a 33, a 34, and a 35. A 21, a 28, a 24, and a 27. So
as long as we have a win, that's all I care about. So, we joke around about this, and genuinely, folks, we are joking around about this. But Ben and I, for years, when we were doing the radio show and everything else, we were always close. Yeah, exactly. We were always close on our predictions. We'd look at each other when we did it and we're like, oh my gosh, I was going to go with this.
How about we don't put any predictions in there ahead of time on the document? So nobody knows what anybody's going to say. So
Well,
write
we're
it
gonna have
down
to get
someplace
praise.
else. Don't write it down.
Roger will still accuse me of.
Yeah,
of looking
Roger.
at-
Roger, do not.
Ben is shady. Come on, guys.
So Roger, do not put your score in there ahead of time.
Okay, I will not put my score. I will not. Ben will not either. We do need to get trays, though. We do have to record that ahead of time because
Yeah, and Trey told us
we
in
don't
his segment,
unfortunately talk them during this season or during this segment. So,
Yeah. Okay.
but again, like I
wish we
said,
could.
2, 3,
Technically,
and
we
4.
can.
Yeah, so 2, 3, and 4 are really close. Ben has taken over second place. I will cede second place to Ben. I'm fighting off Andrew, and we'll see how we do this week.
All right, time for news and notes. And now, news and notes from the world of UCF sports. All right, women's soccer had a bit of a reset last week. A rest, not a reset. Jeez.
He read
Rest
this ahead
and
of time,
reset.
folks.
I just skimmed it. Women's soccer had a bit of a rest last week, and it was scheduled to play conference mate Cincinnati at home on Thursday at 6 p.m. Was scheduled. I don't know. Who knows what's going to happen this week? This is obviously in jeopardy given the hurricane and the school being closed.
UCF men's soccer is now 4-2 after dropping a game at number 23 Memphis 2-3. The Knights are scheduled to play versus FAU on Friday at 7 p.m. and I feel like we're going to say this on every one. It's obviously in question. Ben?
All right, UCF women's volleyball moves up to number 24, and are 10-0. They're still underrated, but volleyball polls are ridiculous. The team got out the brooms and swept both AAC opponents, Memphis and SMU, 3-0, and remain undefeated. Their next conference victims are Wichita State and Tulsa, and they are scheduled for Friday and Sunday at 7 p.m. and 1 p.m. respectively. I am sure they will dole out the same fate to this Kansas team as they did to Andrew's Jaybirds.
Jaybirds.
Also, congratulations to
4-0
McKenna.
Jaybirds, by the way. 4-0.
Also,
This is way more fun when I
congratulations-
drop these little tidbits in here for Ben.
Yeah. Congratulations to McKenna Melville, once again winning Conference Player of the Week.
And
Superstar.
I think it says Wichita there. Wichita is not spelled correctly. Anyway,
And I still
W-I-T-C-H-I-T-A.
nailed it.
That's not
I
it.
still nailed it. It
That's
said it
the
right.
correct way.
It's Wichita.
Wichita. It says Wichita there. Anyway, congratulations to UCF women's golf team on moving up 18 spots and being ranked number 12th in the nation. Wow, that's awesome. 12th in the nation. I have no idea what this little hashtag thing that you put in there is. Roger.
It's Lego, man. Come on.
What is Lego my
Hashtag
ego?
Lego.
What does
No.
hashtag Lego mean?
It's like let's go, but it's like the cool social media. We're
It's
working
what
on
you
it, folks.
think
We're
is
working on it.
cool. It's what you think is cool. Wow.
It's marketing. It's marketing. But
Okay.
yeah,
I'm going to
hashtag
use this
Lego.
on every freaking post that I do. Then
Oh, you absolutely should
No,
because
I'm not
it'll
going
pick
to.
up
I think it's
on the SEO. So
okay.
Lego. But seriously, 18 spots, ranked number 12 in the nation. I think that's the highest the UCF women's golf team has been ranked in the past 15 years, I think is the stat on that. So seriously, congratulations to the UCF women's golf team. That's a big one.
That's awesome.
Okay, yeah, it is. It is a big one. That's awesome that they're ranked high. All right, this has
Better
been
than Wichita State.
That's true. This has been Knightline 277. I'm Andrew Phegley.
And I'm Roger Phipps.
Oh my God, can we do that again? I'm sorry. I totally jacked it up.
No, I think we should just leave it. Go Knights!
Oh,
Charge on!
Charge on to the field. With our spirits, we'll never yield. Black and gold charge right through the light. Victory is our cry, B-S-E-T-O-R-Y. Tonight our nights will shine. UCF Knights, UCF, let's go Knights. UCF,